to school and work, waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons, midnight sketch can't come too soon. The afternoon and sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time you see for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape? Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.
Good evening, everybody. It is Tuesday evening, and we're back here for another fun-filled night with Lorn and Apollo. We've got a special guest who's going to be joining us here shortly. He's waiting in the wings. I know all of you are waiting with bated breath for that. But in the meantime, we've got to get through our initial introductions. I'm Lorn, your host, with my co-host here, Kevin Apollo. Kevin, how are you doing?
I'm good, man. Back home. It was a nice, fun Easter weekend. My internet, I haven't used this computer before, so I don't know why. My main computer has decided that she has been entirely too old, and between Final Cut and the 4,000 videos I have yet to edit, she gave me the old Roberto Duran and said no mas.
Well,
yeah, so we're experimenting live with all new equipment.
it's all right. That's how you work out the kinks. So I'm sure it'll turn out well. But the important thing is you are back home. You're safe. You're healthy. You get to spend the holiday weekend with your family. All's good, right?
All's good, man. I'm super excited for tonight. I love when we get to have special guests. It's it's super cool, and my inner '90s kid is marking out, as wrestling fans say.
Well, so we don't have to hold it off any further. We should bring our special guest in. We will have some other people joining us here shortly. I suspect they're still trying to wrap up at that game place tonight, but I expect that Marvin the Movie Monster and WDW Pro should be joining us later on tonight. But in the meantime, our guest of honor, Mr. Andrew Nelson. Sir, how are you doing?
Greetings from the dark side. How are you?
I'm good. So to give a brief introduction for Andrew, Andrew worked for both LucasArts and Lucasfilm for a period of about a dozen years. He is credited as being the person who has appeared in the Darth Vader costume more than any other actor, appearing in promotional materials, video games, as well as promotional spots. That seems like a job that you'd have to have a pretty interesting resume for. How in the world did you end up becoming Darth Vader?
I happened to be at the right place at the right time at the right height. I was already working for Lucas. I was working at LucasArts. I was a visual effects supervisor and senior artist there, and then worked there for about 6 years, and then moved over to Industrial Light and Magic to work on the effects for the Star Wars prequels and many other films. Did work for Lucasfilm and other things like that. But I was sitting at my desk at LucasArts in 1994, just doing my job, just minding my own business. And my phone rings, and it was the head of public relations. It was a woman who was upstairs from me, and no pleasantries. Doesn't start off the phone call with "Hi, how are you?" Nothing like that. She just goes right into "Hey, Andrew, how tall are you?" I said, "I'm 6'5". Why do you ask? Honest truth. She was about 5'1". I thought she wanted me to come upstairs and get something down off a shelf for her. So I told her how tall I was. And then she says to me, "Do you have any acting experience?" And when you talk to somebody on the phone, you can't see them smile, but you can almost hear a smile in their voice sometimes. That was what I was picking up on. And I'm trying to figure out, where is this going? And at that point, I had, 20 some odd years of theater and film and television acting. And I let her know that. And then she hits me with this. She says, "Can you breathe for me?" which is a really odd thing to have someone request over the phone. And so the wheels are spinning in my head, and I'm trying to figure out where is this going. So I think, okay, how tall are you? Do you have any acting experience? It's a Lucas company. Can you breathe for me? And I just leaned into my phone and I went, I said, okay, what's going on here? And they were looking for somebody to play Vader for a charity event for Big Brothers Big Sisters of America, so that the kids could have their photo taken with Darth Vader. And this is before the wonderful 501st Legion was around, who do a lot of this kind of charity work now. But there had been a guy at Lucasfilm who had done personal appearances as Vader, and he had left the company and moved home to Michigan. And so they needed somebody. So I got called to go up or first to meet with the head of the archives, who was a guy by the name of Don Bees, who was also a modeler,
Droid Wrangler.
Yes, he was a model builder at ILM, and so I call up Don, and he says, "Yeah, I'm down at ILM this week, so why don't you come on over to the model shop and meet with me?" And I'm thinking, cool, I get to see the model shop, because I was working across the parking lot from the model shop. I was at LucasArts, and he was over there at ILM. So I walk up to the building, and it's one of these big warehouses that's got like those big roll-up metal doors and everything. And they had one of those doors was open. And as I'm walking up, I can see all these models, miniatures, and things like that are in there. And there's also just a regular doorway, and the door was open. And I'm looking down the hall as I'm approaching the building, and I see there's the Darth Vader costume in this big plexiglass case. I'm thinking, wow, that's huge. I am never going to fit into that thing. Well, at least I get to see the model shop. So I walk in, and I'm thinking it's going to be, high security. Like, hey, you can't come in here; it's restricted. But I'm having to flag people down. It's excuse me, yeah, I'm looking for Don. Who? Don Bees. So I walk in, and I'm looking around for him, and I'm seeing all these things from like the head of the dragon from Dragonheart, and I'm seeing the big painting Vigo from Ghostbusters 2 and things like that hanging on the walls. And finally I meet up with Don. I find Don, and he says, "Oh, hey, great, nice to meet you," and everything. He's talking with me, and he goes, "You're not claustrophobic, are you?" I go, "No, I don't know. I'm not claustrophobic." And so he's chatting. Oh, good. So we keep walking along, and we meet up to another model builder named Nelson Hall, and Nelson's talking with me and shaking my hand. And we're chatting, and he says, "Oh, hey, I gotta ask you something. You're not claustrophobic, are you?" I go, "No, I don't think so." So we're walking along, looking at stuff, and they're giving me the nickel tour. And finally got introduced to another model builder, Grant Imahara, who a lot of people know from Mythbusters. And Grant's saying, "Hey, it's super to meet you," and everything. And he's chatting and goes, "Hey, by the way, you're not claustrophobic, are you?" And I go, "I don't know, maybe I am." It was a hazing. They were just messing with me. So I go around and I get the whole nice nickel tour, seeing everything. They're working on stuff for a Star Trek film and everything like that. And I'm geeking out. And finally, we end up in the room that I'd seen as I was walking towards the building with the giant, Vader costume in it. And they're all talking like it's a done deal that I'm going to be able to fit this thing. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, I'm never going to fit. And then Don told me, "Yeah, this is one we made for Planet Hollywood. He's a bit beefier than the real deal." And I thought, okay, whew. So then the next week I had to go up to Skywalker Ranch and try on the costume. So I go up to the archives building where they have everything from every Lucas production you can imagine. On the outside, it looks like a robin's egg blue barn, big barn. And on the inside, it's this perfectly climate-controlled building. And they've got all the props and costumes and miniatures from Star Wars, from Indiana Jones. Michael Jackson's Captain EO costume was there. The Howard the Duck costume was there. They used to keep it inside the Ark of the Covenant. It was like, "Don't open it." So I get up there and I try on the costume, and it said D. Prowse on the inside for Dave Prowse. And I'm fanboying out. I tried it on, and it fit. And we did that one event, and I thought, oh my gosh, that is a once in a lifetime opportunity. That is never, ever going to happen again. And I just thank God I had a chance to do it. But then they called me back for something else. And something else, and then I ended up playing Vader 70 times over 12 years. I only know that because my wife very wisely made me keep count. So
it's very cool. And so
my turn to the dark side.
if any of you guys want to know how you become Darth Vader for Lucasfilm or LucasArts, the secret really is be 6'5" and at the right place at the right time
Yes,
when somebody else is not currently playing Darth Vader.
and don't be claustrophobic. So,
Absolutely. That's fantastic. So I wanted to get that question out of the way to start with because I
sure.
knew everybody was going to want to know,
Yeah.
but I don't want to get too deep
Those
into the
two-
interview.
Yeah, there's two questions everybody always wants to know. They want to know, how'd you get the job, and is it hot in there? So,
I do have a question.
okay,
Is that Sylvester McCoy's Seventh Doctor Kane back there?
it certainly is.
Ah, that is amazing.
I am a big Whovian.
Ah.
So, in fact, I'm working with some of the Doctor Who actors now on a project. So,
We're going to get to that, I think, in a
Yeah.
little bit. So, that's the introduction here to Andrew. I've been talking back and forth with him for a few weeks now. I've been really excited to do this interview because we've known that it was going to be coming. Wanted to tease it a little bit, but also wanted to let you guys know on Friday what this was going to be so that you would all be here. But now we do have to get to a couple of super chats that we've got, and then we'll start getting into our stories while we wait for Marvin and Pro to get here. Our first super chat of the night comes from Juliet, our fabulous mod out there, for £2 Morning late night. I am reading it right. Morning late night live with Lorn, Apollo, and chat. Thanks for being out there, Juliet. We appreciate it. That is £2 or proper money, as Marv would put it. And next we got Sephiroth out there gifting 10 WDW Pro memberships. Thank you, sir. Your generosity is noted. Folks out there in the chat, if you receive one of those gift memberships, be sure to thank your gifter. We always appreciate it when you guys are generous with us like that. And we hope that you enjoy all the perks that come with membership. Our first story for the night is actually one that I'm kind of proud of Marv for actually using this headline. It is The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to be replaced by comedy shows. This by Marvin. It says Stephen Colbert is being replaced next month by actual comedy shows that focus on jokes instead of political rage. With The Late Show with Stephen Colbert coming to an end in May, the network isn't looking for a new host. It's not rebooting the format. It's walking away from it altogether. Colbert in the late-night format will be replaced by Byron Allen, who will fill the 11:35 p.m. slot with back-to-back episodes of Comics Unleashed and Funny You Should Ask. Not another desk, not another monologue, not another lecture disguised as entertainment. Just stand-up comedy and panel humor. And that alone tells you everything you need to know about where late night has been. Instead of continuing to pour money into a traditional late-night show, CBS has opted for a time-buy model, leasing the hour to Allen Media Group. That means CBS gets paid for the slot while Allen handles production and advertising. From a business standpoint, it's a clean move. Late night has been shrinking for years, and the costs of producing nightly talk shows have only gone up. But culturally, this is something else entirely, because what's being replaced here isn't just a show. It's an era of late night that drifted away from what made the format work in the first place. Late night used to be simple. You tuned in to laugh at jokes. Over time, that changed, especially under hosts like Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel. The shows became less about comedy and more about nightly political commentary raging about President Trump, with humor often taking a back seat to messaging. That approach turned off Republican voters and narrowed the appeal of a format that once thrived on being broadly entertaining, and now CBS appears ready to reset. Allen isn't pretending this is anything complicated. His pitch is straightforward. Give comedians a platform and let them be funny. I created and launched Comics Unleashed 20 years ago so my fellow comedians could have a platform to do what we all love. Make people laugh, Allen, the founder and chairman and CEO of Allen Media Group, said in the statement. I truly appreciate CBS's confidence in me by picking up our 2-hour comedy block of Comics Unleashed and Funny You Should Ask, because the world can never have enough laughter. It's a stark contrast to what late night has become, and maybe that's the point. CBS isn't just making a programming change, it's making a statement. Instead of chasing relevance through commentary, the network is betting that audiences still want something much simpler at the end of the day, to unwind and laugh. No daily talking points, no built-in agenda, no need to keep up with the news cycle just to follow the jokes. Just comedy. What a refreshing change of pace. And I think that this is kind of showing that they recognize that the format's been damaged. I kind of miss the days of them having what amounted to a variety show where people could come and tell interesting anecdotes, perform, and entertain an audience. I don't know that they necessarily know how to do that anymore, so it makes sense that they're bringing in an outside group to run things during the time slot. And I'm guessing that they're going to be gauging what the audience reaction is. The advertisers will certainly be taking a look at that. My question is, do we think that the late night talk show format is dying and or dead? And can it be revived?
I think it can be revived if it goes back to its roots. I mean, I grew up watching, Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show, and it was just entertainment. That's all it was. And, no message, nothing like that. It was just entertainment. And I think that's what audiences want, especially at the end of the day. They want to laugh. They want to listen to music. They want to have, interest, human interest stories, things like that. That's it. They don't want anything heavy just before they go to bed. I think you can go back to that, but I think you've got to do something drastic. I think it's really smart on CBS's part to do this because, one, it's not going to cost them a lot of money to bring in Byron Allen. Two, Byron Allen is a very shrewd businessman, and he's like it said there in the article, he's been doing Comic Unleashed for 20 years now, and it's worked for 20 years. Bring on comedians, give them, feed them a line that starts whatever bit they're going to do, and let them do their thing, and it works. So
Yep. I think part of what's missing now, it's not just on the host side of things that they have changed the way that they're engaging with the audience. It's also that I think back in the day when you had the heyday of those talk shows, the acting class, most of the people that you brought on were actors and performers that were trained in multiple disciplines. Part of that could be whether it was acting in a movie or a show. It could be that you were a song and dance person. Many of these people actually had training in being charming and knowing how to tell a story. And I'm not sure that people that are currently inhabiting Hollywood have that same kind of background, that know how to be relatable on a show while also promoting their product. I don't know. What do you think, Kevin?
I do agree. I think there is a massive disconnect between the everyday, American, or I should say viewer in general, and how you carry yourself in Hollywood. They kind of fake it now, So unless you are an elder statesman at this point, it's kind of crazy to think that like Ben Affleck and Matt Damon are elder statesmen at this point. But unless you are that level and older, they don't really seem to know how to carry themselves, unless, and I pick on them a lot, but unless it's, what's his name? A little Timothée Chalamet. He seems to be like a pretty genuine person, so when you see him not in the Hollywood sphere, the personality shines through. But unfortunately, those occasions are fewer and further between. So, on top of the constant lecturing and then not being able to make a what at least appears to be a tangential, genuine connection with these folks, the late night slot's been hurting. But I do think there is something else that's pretty interesting here, is that comedy is coming back to TV. Comedy has not been allowed to be funny for a few years now. So not only is CBS removing, a political beatdown before you go to bed, they're replacing it with comedy and giving it the space to allow it to be what it's intended to be, no matter what the subject is. And I don't think that's a risk that people have been willing to take for a really long time. So does that mean the world is actually healing?
Yeah, I think that I think comedy is kind of the bellwether for where the culture is at, because when comics are afraid of offending the audience, they have to play everything safe, and comedy's not supposed to be safe. So I do think that that comedies are gradually making their way back to both TV and the movies is a good sign that maybe we're recovering from whatever this era is. Maybe people are ready to laugh again. That's my hope. Andrew,
I did stand up for years, and it's like you can't play it safe. If you play it safe, nobody is going to pay attention. It's you're going to bomb if you play it safe. You've got to throw the comedy out there, see what sticks, see what works with the audience. I am a little sad to see that the Late Show is going to go away completely, because I was on the show back when Letterman was hosting it, and it was a fun experience. But
Yeah, I think they're institutional, and it's not a format that I want to go away. But there's no denial that from a revenue standpoint, they are not making the kind of money that they used to make. They're not getting the eyeballs that they used to get. I think attention spans have something to do with that too. We're more of a TikTok generation now, and less of a long format variety hour kind of thing.
yeah,
But I think time will tell. I think that the fact that people are dipping their toes into comedy again is a good thing. By the way, Andrew, I don't know if you saw the message I sent in the background. I think your camera's frozen.
Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, hang
Yeah,
on.
we
Let's try
can
that.
hear you. We just can't see you. Either
Been a
that
great
or you're
disturbance in the
really
forest
good at
here.
not blinking.
Oh yeah. Let's see here. Let's see what I can do to fix that. Hang on.
I'm seeing the
Yeah,
Kid
I'm gonna
Canaveral
win
saying
this blinking contest. I'm gonna totally win this blinking contest. Let's see.
whoops.
Oh,
Well, that's all right. He's still in the background. I think he's just getting his camera reconnected. So
that's a
we'll
wrap,
bring him
guys.
back. We'll bring him back in as soon as he gets the camera reconnected. Kit Canaveral did say, I can't say I buy this theory that comedy by its nature is offensive. Why then are some of the greatest comedies from the Hays Code era? And I agree. But I don't know that the point of comedy is to be offensive. It is to point out and speak truths that you normally wouldn't say in polite society, to pierce bubbles so that you can laugh at yourself. And I think that's part of why comedians started playing it safe, as society as a whole got to a place where people didn't want to laugh at themselves anymore. They started taking themselves too seriously. And when that happens, welcome back, Andrew.
There we go.
When that happens, it becomes a battle between
Yeah.
the comedian on the stage and the people in the audience that are paying to, you hope, have a good time. If you can't laugh at your own foibles, you're going to be a pretty miserable person. And I think that's kind of why it's important that we get comedy back on track.
Yeah. Well, listen, look, it took what there was almost a good 10 years
Oh,
where
yeah.
comedians weren't allowed to be comedians, and it wasn't even just a matter of having to worry about the audience being offended. I mean, we can look to Seinfeld saying, "I'm no longer doing college tours because the
Right.
college kids just don't know how to enjoy themselves." But then you actually had to run the risk of not being able to work, or having someone dig through 2 decades worth of comments you made and have something you said on a message board come back to haunt you and totally derail your career, or have someone else have an opinion, and all of a sudden now you get hired for SNL, and now you can't work on SNL, although that worked out, I think, better for him. But so at least now we're in a space where people can publicly be fed up with a lot of what was going on before, whereas before they were also afraid of being victimized by it. And now you're seeing, comedy does not work if it's not genuine. And now you're seeing genuine thoughts, genuine attitudes, and really just kind of a return to, like, I don't know. I think always felt like the best comics were the ones who were just kind of one of the guys, having the conversations that you have with your friends and making points that, just making the points that, the joke resonates because you've had that thought before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We do have a couple of other super chats that have come in. We've got from Mike Glass, member for 9 months, asking, which years and what media did you play Vader?
I played Vader from 2000. Let's see, what was it? No, 1994 to 2006, and I was in the special edition of the original movies as Vader, and all the new footage that George added to those films. I'm in the Rebel Assault 2 and Dark Forces games that LucasArts produced. I am in a massive amount of commercials as Vader, lots of print ads, magazine covers, toy packaging, and even on a U.S. postage stamp as Darth Vader. I thought you had to be dead to be on a postage stamp, but apparently not. I was on the David Letterman show, the Oprah Winfrey show, Showbiz Show with David Spade, Evening at Pops with John Williams and the Boston Pops Orchestra, Entertainment Tonight, all over the place.
Very cool. And we are going to get into some of that stuff as we get deeper into the show. I did have some of your appearances that I've got queued up that we can show. Not a lot of them, but we got a few, so it'll be fun.
Okay.
And we have from Sephiroth again for £5 sterling. Did you hear about Saturday Night Live UK? It's so bad. I mean, it's awful. Where's John Cleese and the Pythons when you need them? Or two Ronnies. Rest in peace.
Yes. Love those guys.
Yep.
It's a shame that the two Ronnies aren't around anymore. And John Cleese is amazing. He's I got to meet him once, and
he's pretty tall himself.
He is. He's actually about an inch taller than I am.
Wow.
And I remember I was at a kind of a Q&A thing that he was doing, and no matter who asked the question, he answered it to me because I was the one at eye level. So
did you get to do any silly walks with him?
No, I didn't get to do any silly walks with him. But
that's a shame.
Yes.
However, Mike approves. No Disney? Excellent. I had to stick a little jab in there. I know you're probably constrained somewhat in what you could say, but I'm happy about it too.
Perhaps.
Our next story up, Daredevil, Born Again, Season 3 set photos confirmed Defenders reunion with Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. This by Alex Gurzo over at Geeks and Gamers. It looks like Daredevil, Born Again, Season 3 is going to host a Defenders reunion, as new set pics reveal that the rest of the team will show up next year. Daredevil, Born Again, Season 2 is currently airing, with the next episode set to go live on Disney Plus tonight at 9 p.m. But Season 3 is filming now in New York City, and some set pics have emerged confirming that the Defenders are back in action. Kristen Ritter is in full costume as Jessica Jones, with two people walking behind her wearing hooded coats to conceal their identity. The coats don't work very well, though, because Finn Jones, who played Iron Fist on Netflix's Marvel shows, is clearly visible, and while the other man is a bit more hidden, he's obviously Mike Coulter, who plays Luke Cage. There have been hints for a while now that the Defenders were coming back. Jessica Jones will appear in the current season of Daredevil Born Again, helping Daredevil fight the Kingpin and his anti-vigilante task force. On a recent episode of Michael Rosenbaum's podcast Inside of You, Mike Coulter said that it's very likely that he would play Luke Cage again soon. And while there hasn't been anything official about it, Finn Jones has asked for another chance to play Iron Fist so he can prove people wrong. Jones's Iron Fist was not well received on Netflix. Now, they've all been seen filming Daredevil Born Again Season 3, suggesting the Defenders are about to reunite. If rumors about the Daredevil Born Again Season 3 storyline are true, it makes sense for the Defenders to join forces again, and for Daredevil not to be in the picture with the other three. Supposedly, Season 3 will adapt the comic book story The Devil in Cell Block D, which finds Matt Murdock in prison after being exposed as Daredevil, having to deal with some of his deadliest enemies while locked up. If that is the case, perhaps the Defenders unite to protect the city in his absence, particularly Hell's Kitchen, which will be missing its guardian devil. There could even be a subplot in which Matt communicates with them from the inside, keeping tabs as he tries to find a way out of jail. And one has to wonder what the Punisher will be up to amid all of this. Adapting The Devil in Cell Block D solves many potential problems for the show. It's a way to get the Defenders back together and to give them something important to do. It's a way for Matt to keep the city safe when he can't do it in person anymore. And it allows the Kingpin to remain a part of the show following the end of the Mayor Fisk storyline, which showrunner Dario Scardapane said will happen this season. It's all but guaranteed that the Kingpin will be masterminding the trouble Matt faces while behind bars, so their conflict can continue without harming the story. And it explains why Matt won't be involved in Spider-Man Brand New Day, despite his old enemies, the Hand, showing up. After their shows were canceled on Netflix, it looks like the Defenders are getting another chance. Let's hope Marvel and Disney do them justice. Kevin, I know you're going to have thoughts on this.
Well, I don't think that Daredevil is not in Spider-Man, because I don't know how you do the Hand and not take the opportunity to give everybody what they want, which is just put Spider-Man with and Daredevil together. I personally, I enjoyed the Ed Brubaker story, Devil in Cell Block D. There was like that whole era, well, Marvel in general was like kind of going through this weird phase of it's not the 90s anymore, but we're also taking this stuff entirely too seriously, and we're doing a lot of shock value things. It just we were on the road to where we are today. It's just no one knew how bad it was going to get then. But you did have some rare gems. There is a Punisher scene once he realizes that Matt is in jail, and he goes to get himself put into jail. That I thought was just one of my it's one of my favorite comic book moments from that era. It also leaves me room for a little bit of speculation on maybe Foggy isn't dead. Because both Karen and Foggy are dead in the comics at this point. And I don't think Karen's back, but Foggy came back shortly thereafter, and it made sense the way they did it. Very, very soap opera-esque. So there's a lot of room for really cool things here if they could get out of their way. And it does not look like Marvel has learned the lesson and decided to get out of its own way. I was actually kind of tickled by Vincent D'Onofrio's little Twitter meltdown today, screaming about how everybody needs to be positive and about the show and how he's going to stop engaging on Twitter. But I'm like, but you guys went out of your way to make a show, and I'm not going to say it's half the population, because it's not half the population. It's more than half of the population does not want to hear this stuff or see this stuff and just wants to be entertained. So when you go and poke the bear, you can't get upset when they get upset because you did it on purpose. So again, just like watching Late Night collapse and CBS having to get rid of the house that Letterman built. The Marvel can't find success if it came in a paper bag that said here, success in here. They just can't do it right now. So they need to get whatever win they can. And I don't know, making another supervillain a Trump allegory doesn't seem to be working for them. Although I have heard some people say that this season is significantly better than the last season, but that also isn't saying too much because that last season was pretty awful.
Well, before I get Andrew's opinion on this, we do have somebody who popped up backstage. Pro, welcome to the show.
Well, it's a joy to be here. I just wanted to stop by and say hi and say thank you to Mr. C. Andrew Nelson for joining us today. And I've got a meeting very, very early in the morning, so I can't stay, but I'm listening in, guys, as I get ready to crash. And what a great thing to have such a person on with Lorn and Apollo. And guys, I'm loving this. Mr. Nelson, I was curious your opinion on the latest statements by Mark Hamill. Have you heard about this? Have you guys been talking about the Mark Hamill quote?
No, I have not seen his latest statements.
His latest statement from today is that there is nobody better to handle Star Wars than Dave Filoni, and he's very excited about that. I don't know if he's politicking on that or if he legitimately believes it, but it makes me now even more afraid of Dave Filoni to hear Mark Hamill say such a thing. Oh my!
I'll say this about Mark is every time that I worked with him, he was extremely nice. He was extremely nice and very friendly. And Dave, I've only met a handful of times, but I know he was mentored by George, but you never know. We got to wait and see.
You know what I want to do sometimes with some of these guys who they get this case where the politics metastasizes into everything that they do. I just want to go up to him and I just want to pat him on the back and say, chill, man. Just chill. You can be so likable. Like, let this go a little bit. Just let it go a little. Just relax. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Anyway, you guys are having a great conversation, and I'm loving the fact that Lorn is doing such a phenomenal job of getting people in and involved and everything that we're talking about with Star Wars. And I'm excited too. I don't know what you guys think about this, but the possibilities that are ahead for these franchises in the hands of creatives and independent creators all across the nation. It doesn't have to be monetized, but the idea that people can put forth the stories using AI or whatever they want to do, they can even go into some of these latest tools that let them create things out in storybook form. But the idea that people are going to be able to say, okay, this is what I always wanted Star Wars to be. Maybe I'm not going to pay for it, but this is my vision for it. And see if an audience, a community builds up around it. That's great to me.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, we'll see if studios start to, clamp down on it just like they did with fan films a while back, after the whole Axanar thing. So,
yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you, so Star Wars Theory, right? Stowe did the fan film, and that was a big deal, and there was a big kerfuffle around it. But we were there at MegaCon, and Lorn and I walked by, and there he is. There's Star Wars Theory, the guy, and we shared, together. Oh, I follow your channel. You follow my channel. Okay. But he's got all of these various sabers, right? All of these replicas and these things that he's been creative to, where he's taken creative license, and he's built all these things, and it semi-exists in the Star Wars universe, but not quite enough that he can merchandise it. And I was amazed. I was amazed at the quality. And, you got to think, some of these people out there, they love the franchise in ways that you just can't inside a corporation. And so great to them to run with it.
Yeah, so true. So true. Yeah. But
well, Mr. Nelson, I just had to stop by and say thank you real quick.
It's Andrew. Don't call me Mr.
Andrew.
Nelson.
I apologize. Mr.
Even
Andrew.
my father didn't put up with that Mr. Nelson stuff.
They call me Mr. Andrew.
Lord Vader. You can call me.
All right, Darth. Guys, I'll be listening in. Thank you so much. And we'll keep on keeping on, telling the truth with a capital T. See you guys.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
So back
that
to
was
Daredevil.
nice. I feel like I should have said, "What is thy bidding, my master?" So
he doesn't
to
look that
be
good in the
cool, darn it. Just be cool.
all right, I shall be cool. So
back to Daredevil. I don't know if you've watched it, Andrew. Have you been following what's going on
I
with
watched
Daredevil?
the original series back on Netflix, and I thought it was great. I actually thought all those series that all became the Defenders. I thought they were good. I even liked Iron Fist.
Yeah.
But I haven't seen anything that's been done since then.
Yep.
I'm just a little trepidatious about watching it. So
See, my experience went kind of different in that I watched some of the Netflix series, but I didn't manage to get through it. I got some kind of interruption in personal life. I don't remember why I didn't finish the first season, but I liked what I saw. Yeah. And I didn't see the other series. My parents did, and they really liked all of the Defenders shows.
Yeah.
And then I tried to watch the new series on Disney Plus, and I think it was either 3 or 4 episodes in, and I realized I can't watch this.
You made it further than you did.
Is it another one of those that they're scrapbooking like they did She-Hulk, or is it?
I didn't feel like it was that. It's that
Okay.
they were. There are ways that you can touch on things that are going on in society and have it work, and there are ways where you can be way too blatant about it. And for me, that's what it was. I didn't like that it wasn't so much allegory as we're going to poke the bear, in my opinion, and I didn't want that. I'm coming here to be entertained. So, but
Yeah, if you leave it allegorical, then you've got a wider audience that can watch it and read into it what they want to. So, yeah.
Yep, totally agree. Our next story, if I can bring it up, it looks like it dropped there. Okay, I don't know why that happened, but give me a second and I'll get it back on there.
We can make something up if you want.
Go for it. Fill time. Okay, here we go. There we go. Olivia Munn claims Alec Baldwin got her kicked off 30 Rock series before air. Olivia Munn says that she was cast on 30 Rock, the popular NBC sitcom, but series star Alec Baldwin reportedly objected. The actress shared the story in a recent interview with The Hollywood Reporter. Her comments suggest that Baldwin's objections were not personal, but seemed driven by artistic considerations. Around the time Munn stepped away from hosting duties on G4's Attack of the Show, she auditioned for 30 Rock, then in its 3rd season. The show was seeking out a love interest for Baldwin's character. Munn told The Hollywood Reporter that she felt really good about everything going into the audition, dressing for the part and staying in character throughout the process. She later received the call confirming she had landed the role. Munn credited her success to focusing on her own performance rather than competing with the other actresses or letting envy creep in. The end of that story is that I got the job, Munn said. However, a back and forth between her and NBC casting followed almost immediately. 2 days later, they were like, Alec thinks that you look too young to play his love interest. Another 2 days later, no, 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 they think you're perfect. You're going to fly out on Saturday. On Friday, no, 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 Alec thinks you look too young and he's putting his foot down. At the time, Baldwin was 52 and Munn was 30. Ultimately, the part of Avery Jessup went to Elizabeth Banks, who was only 6 years older than Munn. Notably, the role earned Banks 2 Primetime Emmy Award nominations for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Comedy Series. I think back on that, and it would have been such a big, big break for me. But I was not devastated, Munn reflected. She said she encouraged herself with the thought of, wow, look how far I got. She added that while Baldwin kept her from landing the job on 30 Rock, it was a circumstance beyond her control. Instead, Munn said she drew confidence from what she had accomplished. On my ability and my acting, I got it. It gave me so much confidence. It seems that, Baldwin aside, the affirmation of others was enough. These people, iconic people, Tina Fey, Robert Carlock, Grace Wood, NBC Casting, they all thought that I was good enough to have gotten the offer, she said. The same year Baldwin kept Munn off 30 Rock, she went on to appear in a string of major projects, including Iron Man 2, Steven Soderbergh's Magic Mike, and a guest role on the television series Chuck, among others. By 2012, she had landed the prominent role on Aaron Sorkin's HBO series The Newsroom, which ran for 3 seasons. She later took on the role of Psylocke in X-Men Apocalypse in 2016. While health issues briefly took her off camera, she's now starring in the Apple TV Plus series Your Friends and Neighbors. Rather than framing her 30 Rock rejection as a setback or publicly holding a grudge against Baldwin, Munn has simply continued moving forward. In the end, the story serves as a reminder that the roles actors don't get can be just as defining as the ones they do. And I think this is a good one for you, Andrew, because I know you've done a lot of stuff. I'm sure you've done lots of tryouts. I'm sure there's roles what's that process like as an actor? Because you've got to learn how to deal with rejection, and it cannot be easy.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I hate auditioning. I've never liked auditioning, but it's the necessary evil. You have to do it. And the truth is that you get maybe 1% out of all the things you audition for. That's just the way it is. You just have to keep doing it and keep doing it. And the trick is, I think she has the right attitude in there about this. You have to look at it as that nobody else going to the audition is your competition. The only competition you have is yourself when you go in. You just want to be as good as you can be, better than you were the last time, that sort of thing. And a lot of times when it comes down to auditioning, it comes down to just a look or a sound or something simple. There are times where actors, you get 2 different actors that are up for a role, and maybe someone just looks a little more like they had envisioned for that part than somebody else, or somebody has just there's some little trait about them. It's not a talent thing. It's just that, okay, you fit what we were looking for. We had a checklist of things you were looking for, and you fit that. And sometimes I have gotten a gig just because I checked off one of those little boxes on their list. And other times I didn't get it because somebody else checked off more boxes than I did. That's just the way it is. But it's because when I first heard this story, I thought, wow, why did she wait so long to say anything about it? But then as you read through this, you realize, okay, it's because it's actually a good thing, because if she got that role, that means all these other things that happened afterwards might never have happened. And there's no guarantee that even if she'd gotten the role on 30 Rock, that it would have been successful for her. So, I always believe that things happen not just for a reason, but for a purpose, because reason is cause and effect. I think there's a purpose behind things like this.
So let me ask the corollary question, because I asked you about it from the actor's perspective, but you're also a director and producer.
Yes, I am.
What's it like from the other side when you have to make those decisions?
Oh, I hate auditioning too. It's terrible. It's a terrible thing because I know what goes through the eyes or through the mind of different actors out there, because a lot of them think that, that when you get rejected for a role, it's because, they hate me, I'm terrible, I have no talent. Or when you get the role, and it's like, oh, they love me, I'm wonderful, I'm exactly what they were looking for, I'm the greatest thing on earth. Neither of those things are true. But from the standpoint of being a director and producer, I hate disappointing people. And there have been times where I've there was a project that we were working on with our company where we had cast somebody in a role and then realized they weren't the right person for the role. And we had to take them out of that role and then give them a different role instead, is what we did, which actually allowed them to shine, which was great. But at the time, it was a horrible thing, and we just felt just horrendous about doing it. But you have to kind of put that aside and realize, okay, you have to put the project first, the story first, the audience first, and what's going to be best for them.
You actually intuited the next question I was going to ask, which is,
that's the Force that did that. So.
But I also want to know, did you ever have somebody that was a godaway, somebody that you rejected for a role and you later felt like maybe they appeared in something else or did something else and you realized there was something there that you didn't see, somebody that you wish that you actually had worked with?
Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet. And I hope it doesn't ever happen. But yeah, but I have seen it happen on other productions, though. I've seen people come in for auditions for something, and I think, you're blowing it here, and you should have cast them, and then later on they move on to something much bigger, much better. First film I was ever in was Howard the Duck, and I played a rocker. I played a rocker in Howard the Duck, and at the time. They had Leah Thompson's character, who is the lead singer of the Cherry Bomb, which is the band in there. And they had all the other girls that were in there. And when I got to set, they already knew that their parts were being cut and trimmed down. Stuff that they had already shot was going to be cut from the film. And they were so sad. And one of them, she was just so devastated by it. And I said to her, I wouldn't worry. I think there's something coming up for you. And that was Holly Robinson Pete, who then went on to Jump Street, who then went on to Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and so on. And so I strongly believe that in life, you knock on a lot of doors, you get a lot of people saying no, but eventually you get a yes. It may not be the yes you expected. It may be a yes that leads to a yes that, leads to where you want to go, or it may be a yes that takes you much further than you ever expected. But you can't dwell on the no. You got to, you have to keep moving and keep looking for the yes, or as the film that I have the poster for up here in Galaxy Quest, Never Give Up, Never Surrender, So
I know that Kevin is going to want to ask you more about Howard the Duck.
Go for it. I dare you.
we have a long storied history with my love of Howard the Duck on this show.
Howard the Duck, for anybody who hasn't seen it, the 1986 film that George Lucas was the executive producer on, and as much as he may want to divorce himself from that film, I saw him there on set. He was there. That was my first brush with George. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie. It's almost a Mystery Science Theater level movie. So.
I've got some fondness for it. It's not a great movie, but every once in a while you get some not so great movies that are guilty pleasures.
Absolutely. I love those guilty pleasure movies.
You going to tell your story?
Tell me your story. Come on. Come on. Tell it.
I guest hosted, and the original intent was to break down just some of the more ridiculous things about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wanted to, when they're in the beginning, when they're flipping through the channels, and I wanted to talk about what was going to be on the screen. And the one thing I said is, well, listen, guys, we're live, and I cannot show the duck boobs. No matter what happens, we can't show the duck boobs.
Yes.
And then we're clicking, and then also the screen kind of starts to freeze a little bit, and I'm adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. I go, I think we got it, guys. And then it jumps a little bit.
Oh no!
To the duck boobs. And then from there on, we can. And then I think what did I was like, stupid duck areola.
And
it stayed with us a
And
year
that's when you
later.
have to put that video behind the paywall, right? So,
yeah, if I remember right, this was actually on Marvin's
Oh,
channel,
oh boy,
and he
even
was
worse.
guest hosting for Marvin, and I think he actually got the stream taken down, if I remember right.
Oh wow.
Just we made it all the way to the end of the stream. So like I don't know, someone somewhere was triggered by Howard the Duck, and I'm like, this is impossible. I have seen at least 20 different channels do full-on retrospectives about this show,
Yes.
about this movie, and they are thriving. So yeah, we wrapped up a month saying
full-on
goodbye.
retrospectives like it was a Criterion Collection thing or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Great.
So like we're trying to say goodbye, and the stream's popping up and down and up and down. Like we're off and then we're back, and then we're off and then we're back, and I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but let's just go while we can say goodbye. And then I eventually edited it out and put it back up for him. But
oh dear.
So there's his infamous Howard the Duck story. Let me see. We got a few other stories we could hit, but I don't want to take a lot of time on some of these, so I think maybe we'll just do this one and then we'll move on to the interview section. This one I thought was kind of sweet. It's Super Mario Galaxy movie composer Brian Tyler packed 300 game references in the soundtrack.
Nice.
Brian Tyler, the composer of the Super Mario Galaxy movie, has spoken about the experience of what it was like working on the project, especially being a Nintendo fan himself, and he revealed that in addition to the film being a visual feast for fans young and old, there are 300 references packed into the soundtrack. In a recent interview with Men's Journal, Tyler was asked if he felt any pressure adapting the music from the Mario games for the movie. In response, he said, "Since I'm one of those fans, it's fun. It's a cool thing. The most difficult and most challenging but coolest task for me is really bringing it to life in a way that becomes epic on the big screen. In order to do that, I have to write new themes for the characters that are cinematic. If you know the movies, they include music from the games and the Super Mario Bros. Movie's main theme, which is from me. It's a cool synergy where I'm writing all these new themes, including the main theme, Princess Peach's theme, Yoshi's theme, Rosalina's theme, and Bowser's theme. All of these are new themes, but they have to feel like they fit inside the world of Super Mario Bros. So when we want to include Easter eggs, there are references all over. I make over 300 references in the score to different parts of the video game series." Tyler certainly does sound like a fan of the franchise, considering the dedication it would take to infuse the Super Mario Galaxy movie soundtrack with over 300 references to the games. But it's this kind of attention to detail that has made the film and its predecessor so successful, and so beloved by Mario fans. He continues, "It's never just a wink to the fans. That's the thing I always wanted to make sure, that if we're ever going to reference something, we never want it to be a wink for wink's sake. We don't want there to be an Easter egg that somehow does a disservice to the scene. Everything was in service to the movie and the story. Since I'm such a huge Super Mario Bros. Fan and I played so many of the games and know them, I love just finding ways when I see something, even if it's something way in the background, we'll do some reference and somehow make it the antiphonal, so it's a call and response type of thing. It's the violins or the trombones or the horns or the choir that will play some main theme that I'm writing for the scene. And then the woodwinds will respond with a reference to a theme of a character that's literally walking by in the background. You wouldn't know the Easter egg unless you knew. For me, that makes it double fun for the superfans like me." Another detail mentioned in the Men's Health interview is that Tyler wrote the film's music while in the hospital because he didn't want to let anyone down. That was where he wrote many of the main themes for the characters. Talk about a dedicated fan, working away on this film even while unwell. In other Mario-related news, Nintendo announced yesterday a limited-time Switch 2 offer featuring a Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2 bundle. The offer goes into effect on April 12th and ends on May 9th in light of the overwhelming box office success of the Super Mario Galaxy movie. As per a statement from Nintendo, here's what to expect with the latest bundle. Players can download a free update to launch right into Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2 on Nintendo Switch 2. The next evolution of the Nintendo Switch system, packed with upgrades and fun ways to connect and play together. Super Mario Galaxy plus Super Mario Galaxy 2 contains 2 star-hopping adventures featuring enhanced resolution, improved UI, extra storybook chapters, and new assist mode and more. In Super Mario Galaxy, players will follow Mario on a journey across the cosmos to recover the stolen Power Stars from Bowser, with help from Rosalina. In Super Mario Galaxy 2, Yoshi joins Mario's adventure through space aboard a starship shaped like Mario's head. With the free update on Nintendo Switch 2, each game supports 4K resolution and Joy-Con 2 mouse controls for a second player. It makes sense to use the wildly successful Super Mario Galaxy movie to promote the re-releases of the games on which the film is based. Younger fans in particular have an opportunity to see the origins of the new movie and to get steeped in even more Mario history, and maybe find out what the Super Mario Galaxy movie soundtrack was referring to with some of those 300 references. If you've not yet played these beloved 3D Mario games, consider buying them or just picking up copies of the games, especially if you're a Nintendo fan. So, they're clearly capitalizing on the success of the movie, and it sounds like it's continuing to do gangbuster at the box office, despite what critics have said about it. I haven't seen it yet, but my son did, and he loved it. He had a great time at it. He's the target audience, and I think that's also important. We're not only starting to get, I think, what we're seeing is a pivot in movie making to start catering to the audience again, but we're also hopefully getting more, I guess what I would call niche storytelling, where you've got kids movies that are coming back where you can have them have their movie while you maybe go see something that you want to watch. Comedies are starting to reappear. I have a suspicion romantic comedies are about to start making a comeback if we can just maybe get over the gender war a little bit and start realizing that men and women actually should like each other a little bit. That would be a good thing. But I'm encouraged to see that when you have somebody like this composer who is a fan of the property and making sure to stick in those references, that's a sign that maybe they're starting to get people who like the properties working on them again. What do you think about that?
I completely agree. That just hearing this article here makes me want to see the movie. Just the composer doing that makes me want to see the movie. Because you can tell there's that love, there's that respect for the original IP. That's wonderful. So.
Yeah, I've been really discouraged that so many studios that have valuable IPs have taken the stance that they don't want fans working on it. They want somebody with an outside perspective, and I think the idea must be that they think all of these properties are catering to a niche and they want to have broad audience appeal. And I think the formula that they're using in their head is, we want to appeal to people who wouldn't normally want to see this movie, so we need to talk to people who don't like it to find out what do you want. And it's like, for those people, build your own property would be my advice.
If people don't like it, they're not going to want it. That's just all there is to it. My gosh, it's you take something that is beloved by a group of people, you're making a lot of money off of that, and then you say, we can make more money if we convince a whole bunch of other people who don't like it that they actually do like it. That doesn't work. So.
But while also telling the people who like it, we need you, but it's not for you.
Yes, this isn't for you, but we need your support.
Yeah. We need you.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
I do think that that's a lot of why the audience backlash has occurred, too, is because you had people that moved into these spaces that already had a fan base, and they come in and tell something that we warn you not to do. Don't do this. Just don't do this one thing. And then they turn around and say, as Kevin said, this wasn't made for you. It's like, who do you think built the company that you are privileged to work at? Because that money comes from somewhere, and it is the consumer.
Yeah.
I always scream that fans are the customers and your investors.
Yeah.
And it's so different. Like, in the 90s, we got it. The studios just did not know how to handle certain things, which is how you wind up with the Mario Brothers movies, or like weird little things like Tank Girl or Barbed Wire. But like you supported it because you liked the IP. You just in hopes of they would get it right one day.
Yeah.
And then you finally hit the little stretch where they start getting it right. They say the right things. They give you the right kind of movie. And then once they make enough of your money, they drive the thing off the cliff and they want to lecture you because you don't like that they drove it off the cliff.
Yeah.
And we're all just kind of going like, no, just give us what worked. Or like something like Star Trek. Hey, it has its own very special lane. Yeah. Star Trek works when you let Star Trek be Star Trek.
Right. Like you said, don't drive it off the cliff. I'm not going to sit in the car with Thelma and Louise. Yeah. So, I'm just sorry. It's just not going to happen.
Yep. Guys, we've got a number of super chats that have been stacking up. So, and actually, there we go. We got one from Sephiroth for £5 British sterling. What makes SNL UK even worse is it only started 2 or 3 weeks ago. I actually feel like it's worse than the US version. All the comedians are awful.
Oof.
Dear. Oh dear.
Sorry to hear that. Really sorry that that's not working out for you. Hope it gets better soon. We got Wolfle McGruffle III for $5.01 from Space Cowgirl. I'd like to ask Mr. Nelson if the lines were read and dubbed over, or were the lines played into Vader's helmet to act with?
You have to say the lines on set. You always have to say the lines on set because the other actors need it for timing. But of course, it all gets dubbed in afterwards. And of course, when I started playing Vader, the character was already established. I'm the 2.0 Vader. I got that nickname from Trace Beaulieu from Mystery Science Theater, who gave me that name. But so everything was already established. So I already knew that my voice was going to be dubbed over. And the thing is, a lot of people don't realize. Speaking of dubbing, just to go off on a slight tangent here, that in the films, a lot of things get dubbed. Even Mark and Carrie and Harrison and others get their voices dubbed by themselves because there's so much ambient noise on set, and you're running across plywood, and there's explosions going off that there isn't clean sound, and so they went, like, I think with Return of the Jedi, about 60-70% of the dialogue had to be dubbed later. It had to in ADR to just to make it clean. So but yeah, you have to say the lines, and it gets completely muffled. I mean, the people on set can hear it, but a microphone wouldn't be able to pick it up very well anyway, because there's a lot of padding and a lot of reverberation and a lot of mesh and things like that are in the way. So, but yeah, I have to say the lines.
That's actually a question that I want to follow up on, because it's, if you watch a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for the documentaries for Star Wars, you can see a lot of examples of this, and you can begin to understand why Mr. Prowse, while being an excellent physical performer, was not used for the voice of Vader, which was something that he was actually a little bit insulted about. Yeah. But you can also see one of the most obvious examples of the ADR work that was done was for the lady who played Aunt Beru in A New Hope, yeah, whose accent was so thick that she was overdubbed by another actress, and it doesn't match up real well. Right. And in fact, one of the other problems there is that I think they actually used Phil Brown's lines from on set. It sounded like, because you could hear ambient noise.
Yeah,
but
there
when
was a
she
big difference. Yeah.
Yeah. When she responds, there is none of that.
Yeah. Well, you also look at Wedge Antilles.
Yes.
Played by Dennis Lawson on camera, but at that point Georgia decided that okay, all the Imperial characters would have British accents, and all the rebels would have American accents, and so his voice was dubbed in by David Ankrum.
Yeah, and if you want to hear his natural voice, we actually did a movie review that he played a major part in for the Genre Guys, called Local Hero. So if you're interested in...
Great movie.
Fantastic movie. Yeah. Really loved it.
And young Peter Capaldi in there too. So
yes, very young. I was shocked.
Very young.
Yes. Next up, we got Snarky Distinct for $4.99. Thank you for being a legend of my childhood. Andrew, what an amazing name. Thanks, Andrew, Lorn, Kevin, Pro, for this opportunity. Thank you.
That's an amazing name. Snarky Distinct. I like that.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a frequent contributor here on the channel. Actually, I suppose I can, if I can find it here. He's got one of our member videos, and I'll bring up real quick.
Oh, nice.
Love you, Stark.
Nice.
Next up, we've got Karen Owen, member for 36 months, saying, could you share who was 3PO with you on The Late Show with David Letterman? The fan who keeps the archive and database for the show would like to know.
Okay. Let me think back for a moment. I have to make sure that he actually wants to be known. I tell you what. Why don't you go to my website, candrewnelson.com, shoot me a message there. I'll get it. And, remind me. And then I will find out whether this person actually wants to be, mentioned. And then I'll give that info for you so you have it for the archives. How does that sound?
Fair enough. Fair enough. Sounds
So
good.
I don't want to say it without I don't want to spill the beans there. But because we had a couple of people that did it in-house for us for things. One was Grant Imahara, but he didn't do that particular thing. So
Cool.
Mhm.
We've got Jerry O'Connell, who just said, "Hello, Andrew. Love your work."
Well, thank you, Jerry. And we have never met before, have we? That's my best buddy and business partner. So
Next up, we've got Bruce Newhouse for $4.99. Interspecies relationships are difficult for some people. What story was that in relation to? Because it must have been one we talked about tonight. But
I need a drink now.
yep, me too. And Sephiroth again for 2 British
Water.
pounds sterling. Mario was great, lacks story, but it's for kids. And yeah, that's kind of the impression I've gotten. And as far as I'm concerned, it sounds like the kids are enjoying it. And if that's the case, that's the target audience. So I'm happy with it.
I didn't see the Mario films because I was a little upset that they were recasting all the voice actors from instead of using the ones from the games, because all the ones from the games are friends of mine. So
yeah, I can see where that would be the case. I liked the first one, but from what I've heard about the second one, I was a little surprised my son liked it, but everything I've heard made it sound like it's seizure inducing. So I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure that I was really going to be up for it, but I am curious because I did like the first one. So
okay.
all right. So now we should probably get into the formal interview part of the show, which is what I've been most excited about getting into. I've wanted to get to this for weeks now. We've been corresponding back and forth. You talked a little bit about how you got the role as Darth Vader, but at that time you were already working at LucasArts / Lucasfilm.
Right.
How did you start working at LucasArts? How did you start that part of your career path?
Honest truth, I answered an ad. There was an ad in the back before we had all these websites for job listings and things like that. I answered an ad in the San Francisco Examiner Chronicle newspaper. They were looking for someone. Well, first of all, I was working. I'd been an actor since I was 10 years old, and I was doing acting gigs here and there. But as my day job, I was working as an accounts payable clerk for a big international freight forwarding company. I did it for 4 years. They tell me I did it very well, but I don't remember any of it because I learned it all mechanically and forgot it as soon as I left. My whole time, the whole 4 years that I was there, I was plotting and planning how I could escape from there and get some kind of job in production. I wanted to work somewhere in the entertainment industry behind the scenes. And so I had sent my resume around to everywhere I could, every film studio, every television station, every game company, every commercial house, everywhere that I could, and anywhere in Northern California where I lived. Got a lovely stack of rejection letters. By the way, if anybody has some of those books out there that resumes that knock them dead and cover letters that knock them dead, take them to the recycling bin. They're horrible because they teach you how to sound like everybody else. What you need to do is you need to sound like yourself in a professional way, but you have to sound like yourself. So when I saw the ad it wasn't even called LucasArts at the time. They were called Lucasfilm Games, and they were looking for somebody to be a technical support representative, a customer support rep. And so I changed my tactic. Instead of trying to sound like everything that the books were telling me to do, I looked at their listing and I said, okay, they're looking for 5 different things. And I said, okay, I'm going to list their 5 different requirements. I'm going to list my 5 equivalents. And then I'm just going to honestly say, here's why I want to work for you. And it worked. And I got a job interview. Something, oh, great, fantastic. I don't want to blow this interview. I'm finally get a chance to interview for the Lucas companies. And this was back in the days before we had GPS or anything like that. This was 1993. And I had a Thomas guide, a book of maps that I kept in my car. And I remember I plotted a course. Okay, how am I going to get from my house, through San Francisco up to Marin County and to the offices where I needed to go. So I plotted the whole course. I plotted the worst course. I mean, it was just meandering way downtown in San Francisco. There was a much faster way of doing it, but I figured it out, and I did a trial run, and I got there, and I got to the offices, and I thought, this is the place? Because it didn't look like anything. The Lucas companies were all in very nondescript. Anything that wasn't at Skywalker Ranch was in very nondescript buildings, because they didn't want people, poking around. There's no big sign saying, "Hey, welcome to Lucasland." They just didn't want people poking around. So they would rent out different buildings, and they would leave the old name of the establishment on it, like Kerner Optical Company or the Social Security Administration office or whatever. They would just leave that on there so that it was camouflage. So I get there and I think, okay, at least I know how to get here. That's great. I go home, go to bed that night, confident that I know how to get to where I'm going. I wake up the next morning, and the emergency broadcast system is going off. It had been raining, just pouring cats and dogs all night long, and the roads are flooded. And I turn on the news, and I'm looking on the TV, and I'm seeing helicopter shots of the road that I have to drive on to get to this job interview. And I'm like, no. And finally, I got to do it. I got to do it anyway. So I get in my car, and I was driving some like horrible beat up 1973 Datsun 1200. It was just a barely holding together kind of car. And I get on the road, and I've got the wipers going as fast as I possibly can, and I can't see. It's like driving to Hawaii. It was just really just water, just a wall of water. And I'm following the taillights of the car in front of me, hoping that they're staying on the road. But I get to the spot where I'd seen on the news, and cars had been stalled out, and they're still there, stalled out, but the water had receded by that point enough, and the rain was starting to stop. So I plowed through there and get to my destination. I got there just in time. I'm completely overdressed for the job. I'm wearing a sport coat, even fancier than this thing right here, and I'm wearing a nice dress shirt and a bolo tie, and it's like, freaking company. What was I thinking? But I go into the interview, and I'm trying all the interview techniques that I've learned out of those books and everything, and everything's going great. The lady's laughing at my jokes, and I'm mirroring her body language, and everything's going wonderful. And I think, I've nailed this. And then I find out she's a screener. I have to go into the next room and interview with the actual manager of the department, of the customer support department, and she is a stone cold slab. Just no laughter. She doesn't laugh at my jokes. She's asking me these very pointed questions. She's staring at me with her very piercing dark brown eyes, and now I'm fidgeting, and I'm sweating, and I'm forgetting everything I'm supposed to do, and my jokes aren't landing, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, that's it. I've blown it. But I left there, and I just thank God, and I just like, hey, I had a chance to do this. This was a great opportunity. Thank you. The next morning, I get a phone call from the stone cold slab, who's this giggly, bubbly person that I don't recognize. And she says to me, when can you start? So February 1st, 1993 was my first day at LucasArts. And the first thing I had to do was play all the games so that I could answer questions about them. And it's like, this is cool. So when they hired me and one other guy, this to show you how small the company was at the time. When they hired me and they hired one other guy at the same time, they doubled the size of the department. So it was very small. We had 4 tech reps and 1 manager, and then things blew up because we released games like the original Rebel Assault. First we released Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, which was pretty popular, but then we released the first Rebel Assault, and then people were buying computers who had never touched a computer in their life. They were buying computers just to play that game. And I was answering the phone for that. So if you bought a game from LucasArts in 1993 to 1994, and you got home and you tried to play it on your computer and it wouldn't run, and you got all angry, and you looked on the back of the manual and you found the 800 number and you dialed it, I was the guy that answered the phone. So I did that for about a year. And then I built up a portfolio of artwork, and I submitted it to the art director, and she took a look at it and she said, well, this is basically junior level stuff. And I was like, oh, stick the knife in and twist it. But then she looked at the rest of my resume, and she had seen that I had a background in video, because I had worked at a cable access TV station back in the day in this little town called Pacifica, California, just south of San Francisco, about 10 minutes south of San Francisco. Actually, I worked there with Dana Carvey. He was actually worked there for, we had like 2 weeks of overlap there. But that was my hometown. That's where I grew up. Actually, Rob Schneider grew up there too. He went to my rival high school at the other end of town, and we both started in stand-up at the same time, played some of the same clubs. But I digress. But I submitted my portfolio, and she wasn't that impressed by it, but she was impressed by the fact that I had all this video background, and she was working on a game that was going to require video in it. And there were two guys in the whole company that knew anything about video. One was tied up on a project, and the other one was on sabbatical. So she brought me into the art department at the very bottom of the ladder, a position called art technician. So I wasn't even creating artwork. I was taking the artwork that the artist did, which was in millions of colors, and I was dropping the palette down to 256 colors, because that's all that Windows could handle at that time. Actually, I had to go below that because I couldn't touch the 32 Windows interface colors, or everything would go wonky on the screen. And the first game that I worked on was a game called Mortimer and the Riddles of the Medallion, which you've never heard of.
I've heard of it. I remember that one.
Liar!
That was the one. It's with the snail.
Yeah, all right, you know it. I guess it was about a flying snail, voiced by comedian Kevin Meaney, and he's having to fly through all over the world to rescue all the animals that have been frozen in time by the evil Lodius, who was voiced by Maurice LaMarche. And so when I started on that game, I was art technician, and by the time the game shipped, I was lead effects animator, and then became a visual effects supervisor and senior artist soon after that. So,
and this is eventually what led to you transitioning over to Industrial Light and Magic. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep. So
yes, how did that happen?
That happened. Well, like I said, I was a visual effects supervisor, and I was working on 5 games at once. Basically, I was overseeing teams of people and working on 5 games at once. And a buddy of mine that I worked with at LucasArts, a guy by the name of Mike Levine, who he's the Jedi Master that trained me when I started in the art department. He had moved on from there, and he was working for a software company called Puffin Designs, I believe it was called. Scott Squires, who was a visual effects supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic, had made this software called Commotion, which was a compositing, rotoscoping, digital paint tool, and very good piece of software. But very few people knew how to use it. And I was one of the ones who did. So when they asked Mike, because ILM had just bought a whole bunch of seats of this software, they asked him, do you know anybody who knows how to use this? And he goes, I got the guy for you. So I went into the interview, and I was basically a compositor, and I was interviewing in the rotoscoping department. And for people who don't know what the rotoscopers do, rotoscopers' job is twofold. The first job is to create mats by hand. So the procedural method would be blue screen or green screen, where you tell the computer, all right, make that color go away, and then give me a clear area around whatever the foreground object or subject is. And that's a procedural method for making a mat. The other way is doing it by hand, where if you're basically you're making an outline, tracing an outline around an object or a subject every single frame, articulating it every single frame to isolate it from the rest of the background, so that you can manipulate it separately, or you can manipulate the rest of the image. So let's say you've got a shot where Jar Jar Binks, who was a CG character, has to walk in front of Obi-Wan Kenobi but behind Qui-Gon Jinn. What you do is you trace the outline of Qui-Gon Jinn every single frame to preserve him, so that you can put this other layer sandwiched in behind him. So you're creating mats by hand. The other job of the rotoscoper is to do digital paint. So you're painting things out of shots that don't need to be there, such as safety harnesses or wires or tethers or tracking markers or things like that. And you're painting in things that need to be there, but aren't. So whatever the rest of the background would be. So that's the job of the rotoscoper. So I'm a compositor that's interviewing in the rotoscoping department. And I'm told, well, you're completely overqualified, but we'd love to offer you the job. It's like, wow, that's a wonderful thing to hear somebody say. So I got the job, and I was immediately drafted into matte painting. I had never done a matte painting before in my life. I don't know how I got into matte painting, but they said, no, you're going to be doing matte paintings, which is basically you're creating backgrounds completely out of nothing. You're creating it out of whole cloth. And so I was assigned to work on the ground battle on Naboo for Phantom Menace.
I'm so sorry.
And so we had to create all these backgrounds because, sorry, Naboo doesn't really exist. Sorry to burst anybody's bubble. It's actually the farmland north of the San Francisco Bay Area. And so Dennis Murin, the visual effects supervisor, went up there with a 35 millimeter still camera loaded with motion picture film stock, and he shot hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of photos of the rolling green hills. And we scanned that into the computer, and that's what we used as the basis for all these backgrounds. But at the end of my first week, I'm standing at Dennis's desk, and I'm showing him my very first matte painting. He's looking at it on his monitor, and as he's looking at it and making comments, I'm trying not to be a complete fanboy because I'm thinking inside, I used to cut photos of you out of Starlog magazine and hang them on my wall because he was my visual effects idol there. And so I'm standing there just listening to what he's saying, and he's making different comments, and then he throws me for a loop because he turns to me and goes, "Oh, I don't know. What do you think?" I didn't know what to say. I knew what not to say, which was what was in my head, which was, "You've got more Oscars than anybody alive. You tell me," because he's got like 8 Oscars or something like that. But that was how I ended up on Phantom Menace, and so I spent 6 months of my life landscaping Naboo. And then my wife ended up helping out too. So my wife, Veronica Loud, ended up being a visual effects photographer because George was very insistent about having beautiful puffy white clouds on Naboo at all times. So I thought, okay, great. We've got a stock photo library. We've got plenty of cloud photos. We'll be fine. We burned through those so fast that we had to start trying to repurpose those clouds. And it started to look like the same clouds. Here we are 4 hours into the battle and the same clouds hanging over the battlefield. I guess there's no wind on Naboo. So I mentioned this to my wife, Veronica, and she's an amazing photographer. We're driving. I'd come home and I was just distraught. I was just like, run out of clouds. George wants more clouds. And she's like, okay, look, you got to chill. We need to go for a drive. It's something that calms me down. So we go for a drive. We're in San Francisco. We're driving around. And as we're driving, I see the perfect clouds in the sky. I said, those clouds, those are the clouds I need. She goes, all right, fine. She rolls down the window, grabs her camera, sits on the edge of the window. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she snaps the most amazing photos of these clouds. And I said, what are you doing? She says, I'm making history. So I take those to work. Lucasfilm pays her for them. That's how we finished the ground battle. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I would imagine trying to do, especially in those days when you're dealing with the early digital tools, sort of early digital tools, on a picture of that scale and having to develop all of that frame by frame, that's incredibly tedious work. That is, you've got to have a certain kind of mindset to do that kind of work.
You do. You have to have toys at your desk, and you have to have a lot of things. Yes, you do a lot of things to keep yourself from going bonkers. You really do, because it can be very tedious. Movie magic is great, but it's not magical at all times.
That's the industrial part of the name.
That's right. That is exactly it.
I'm actually glad that you brought up the rotoscoping part, because I wanted to talk about a conversation that I had with you over email, because I was curious about it. You had brought up that one of your appearances as Darth Vader was from Dark Forces at LucasArts. Yes. And I had always had a question about this particular scene, because when you said that, I was trying to figure out, how can that be? That's not a visual effects sequence in Dark Forces. That's an animated scene. But the scene that we're talking about, Darth Vader appears in basically 2 scenes in that entire game. Once at the very beginning, once at the well, actually 3 scenes there because he's in the cell with Crix Madine as well. But the scene that we're talking about is at the very beginning when he's meeting with General Rom Mok, and the scene opens on the bridge of a Star Destroyer. Vader is standing at the end of the command walkway, as you would expect, and he turns around.
Yes.
And this scene always looked to be different than any other animated scene that LucasArts did. It did not look like typical pixel animation.
Right.
And yet, at the same time, it's clearly not full motion video. And so when you said that, I sent you a question and I said, all right, what's going on here? And what you said was, and this was the thing that I always noticed, the animators were struggling with animating Darth Vader's turn and the swish of his cape. And so what you said that you had to do was you ended up calling the ILM prop department and finding out, first of all, can we rent the Darth Vader costume?
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. It was so. I'm sitting in my office. Mike Levine and I are sitting in our office one day, and the game designer Justin Chin comes in, and he's just fed up. He's just like, oh gosh, it's like I love our animators, but they can't animate the cape. I go, what are you talking about? It's like, Vader, I'm trying to get this swish of the cape, and he's turning around, and it just isn't working out right. This is before we were doing 3D animation and thing. Actually, that was the very first 3D. That game had the very first 3D animation that LucasArts did. It was the Dark Troopers. So I was like, just like a little, giddy child when I watched Mandalorian and saw the Dark Troopers show up on there. So it was like, so it's like they can't get the cape swish right, and it's like, and he says, I just wish we could, put somebody in the costume and shoot it. And it's like, I just played Vader twice for Lucasfilm at that point, and I thought, I think I know an answer to this. I think I have a solution. So I called up Don Bees, who I'd mentioned before, who was the archivist at the ranch, but besides being the model builder at ILM. And I said to Don, hey, we're working on this project, Dark Forces, big Star Wars game here, and we're having trouble trying to animate a couple of scenes with Darth Vader and the scene with Boba Fett. And we just want to know, hey, can we borrow the costumes? And he said, no, but we'll rent them to you. What do you mean? I thought we were all one big company. And he's like, not for accounting purposes. So we said, okay, well, how much would it cost to rent those 2 costumes? And when he told us how much, and we came to with smelling salts, we thought, well, okay, that's out of the budget. And then he said, if you guys bring a camera up here to the archives building and the costumes never leave the ranch and they never leave the building, I won't charge you. Great. So we went up there and we shot everything we needed with a Hi8 video camera. This is like, does anybody remember Hi8 anymore, that format? But we that's what we used. And we had to find a blank wall to shoot against so that we could, because we knew we were going to have to rotoscope it. And so they put me in the costume for Vader for that. And Justin Chin, the game designer, put on the Boba Fett costume, which is pretty heavy, and he was a thin guy at that time, so he was struggling under that. And we shot what we needed to shoot, and so we put that into the game. So we had to trace the outline of me as Vader and him as Boba Fett to go into the game, and then the animators then touched it up so that it had a very animated style to it. So that's why it had that sort of not quite video, not quite animation look to it.
The amazing thing about that story to me is that it was noticeable. There was something different about that scene that is like, this is clearly beyond the traditional animation in some way, but I never could put it together until you told me that story, and it made me so happy to finally get that. It should also be noted, Justin Chin, if I remember correctly, is also the guy, he was the lead storyteller for Dark Forces, also Jedi Knight.
Yes.
And once you got to Jedi Knight, they were doing full VFX at that point.
Oh, absolutely. And when we did the Jedi Knight game, it was like working on a feature film. We had 300 effects shots in that half hour of full motion video. 300. It was crazy. So I was overseeing half of those. Mike Levine was overseeing the other half. And And we had to do things that had never been done digitally before. Star Wars effects that had never been done digitally. The lightsaber effects had never been done digitally. The Obi-Wan's sort of, that sort of Obi-Wan glow when he's a Force ghost, that had never been done digitally before. All these things that had never been done digitally. And we had to figure out how to do it. The lightsabers was a fun one because it had always been done as an animation effect. In the original films, they tried a lot of things on set that didn't quite work. So they eventually figured, well, we'll do it in post-production. And so basically you have the decorative handle plus a big rod made out of You all right? You all right, Kevin?
I'm all right. Kittens.
Just falling down the staircase. It's okay. Don't worry about me.
Happens all the time.
Attacked by droids or something, or even worse, maybe Ugnaughts had taking all his furniture away. Oh dear. Okay.
Classic Batmobile decided to fall off of a shelf.
Did it fall on you? You all right?
Almost. It was close.
So the way that it was done, the lightsaber effects were done. There was a white plastic rod tapered to the sort of a point, sticking out of the decorative handle, and that's what the actors fought with. And then the footage was projected onto an animation stand, traditional animation stand with 3-hole animation paper like Warner Brothers or Disney would have used back in the heyday. And an artist would trace the outline of that rod every single frame, and then transfer that onto animation cells and ink it in and rephotograph it. And that's how they created the matte. And then you have do the negative of that to create the matte so that you could isolate that part of the image and add the glow and the color to it. And we had to figure out, well, how are we going to do this as a digital effect? We tried all kinds of crazy things, including taking broom handles and painting them like hot fluorescent pink to see if, well, okay, maybe we can key that color out. Well, the thing is, when you swing it, it just becomes this one big blur. So that didn't work. So we ended up doing basically the digital version of what they did in the original films. We were taking the footage that had been shot and then making a mask around that blade every single frame, rotoscoping it, letting the computer do a few in-betweens here and there. And that's how we ended up with the glow and the color. Of course, nowadays there's a plugin for that. There's like free software you can do that for. But we did it first, and then that was the same technique we ended up using on the prequels, just different software.
I have a dumb question I'm going to ask you about this. That's just personal
Great.
curiosity.
Let me see if I can come up with a dumb answer.
You may not know the answer to this, but Kyle Katarn's lightsaber in Dark Forces 2.
Yes.
Was the handle a pepper grinder?
No.
Okay.
It looks very much like a pepper grinder, but not. No. But the props were really cool. Don Bees and his wife Anna made all the props and costumes for that shoot, and it was great. I will tell you this though: every time you see in Jedi Knight, every time you see close-ups of Kyle Katarn's hands and feet, they're mine. Every time you see close-up of the Dark Jedi Jarek's hands and feet, they're mine. Because after we did the big blue screen shoot, we didn't know that we had no close-ups. And so it's like, well, we can't just go back down to LA and get everybody back together and try to shoot this. So we had one conference room at LucasArts that had a blue screen in there just for these sort of occasions. And so I had to squeeze into their costumes and try to, we had to film my hands doing that. So including the dark side ending, which I don't know if people are familiar with the Jedi Knight game. There's a certain point in the game where you can choose to continue on the path of the light side of the Force, or you can turn to the dark side. And you have different Force powers from that point on in the game as Kyle Katarn, or and then also you have different cutscenes and a different ending. And the dark side ending, spoiler alert, Kyle Katarn basically ends up like being the new Emperor. He replaces the Emperor. And at the beginning of the game, he had this little holographic projector that's projecting footage of when he was younger and he's talking with his father and the sage advice that his father is giving him. And so at the dark side ending, he is holding, he sits on this throne. There's nobody else in the throne room. He looks around, and from under his cloak, he pulls out this holographic projector and he turns it on. And he looks at it, looks at that footage of he and his father. Then he takes it and drops it to the floor and crushes it with his boot. And that's the ending. So that was what I had to shoot, was the close-up of the boot coming down for Jarek, or for Kyle. And so we had 3 of these crushable props. And so I had three chances to get it right. I got it right on the 3rd try. So it was a little nerve-wracking, but got it right on the 3rd try. Those props may have disappeared somewhere.
So,
I mean, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
that actually brings me to another interesting bit of trivia here, is that you've not only played Darth Vader, you've also played Luke Skywalker.
Yes, I did. It's true. Actually, I played Luke before I played Vader. So I was at LucasArts, and this would have been, I think, late '93. I think it was. The programmers that were working on the Super Empire Strikes Back for the Super NES game, they sent out a message within the company to say that, hey, we need somebody to do a scratch track of Luke's voice. And a scratch track is just a temporary track. It's not meant to stay. It's just there for a short while, so they have a placeholder, just something to work with. So I didn't even respond to the message. I just ran over to their office and said, hey, I'll do it. So they set up a microphone, and they recorded me doing the few lines that they needed. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. And I was like, nobody's ever going to hear it, but that was cool. A few days later, I passed by the programmers in the hallway, and they go, I think we're going to keep that. And that's how I ended up as Luke. And then I ended up doing it for other games like X-Wing and others.
Awesome.
So, yeah. So I'm Vader's body and I'm Luke's voice. If you put me together, hopefully I'm one whole person.
you were Luke in X-Wing for Imperial Assault, or no?
For
Imperial Pursuit.
It was, yeah, B-Wing. B-Wing was
B-Wing.
Yeah.
So you've hit upon my favorite LucasArts game.
Okay.
Have you played or have you seen X-Wing VM, the mod that's been put out to?
I haven't. No, I've heard about it.
So there is a group that has done. I'm going to take a little bit of time just to geek out a little bit. They have done an engine replacement in the Unity engine that is a full remaster of the game, including 3D cockpits, and they made it VR capable. It also outputs telemetry now, so if you have a full motion rig, you can actually get motion in it too. So those games are still preserved, playable, and a fantastic experience if you're into that kind of thing.
That sounds great.
Yeah, I've been looking at upgrading my entire setup just to go through them again. For a minute
there, I thought you were going to make me try to do the Luke line.
Oh no, I wouldn't do that. That's cruel to put you on the spot like that.
No, people do that to me at conventions sometimes. So it's like,
right. Was that a good experience for you when you were doing the voice work? Because I know that you do a lot of. What's it like doing that in the studio while you're doing it? How do you get into the headspace to do it?
Oh, it's great fun. It's the same thing as with Vader. You want to try to preserve what came before you and make sure that it reads true. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exact. But the idea is you want it to read. You want it to make sure that when people hear Luke's voice coming out of my face, when they hear Luke's voice, that they go, hey, that's Luke. When they see Vader, they go, there's Darth Vader. You don't want them thinking, oh, there's somebody else in the costume or there's somebody else doing the voice. So you do your best to try to get it as close as you possibly can. Somebody ranked all the voice actors that had done Luke, and I came solidly in the middle. So I thought, hey, that's good. That's good. It's like,
that brings to mind another question. When you're doing an appearance as Vader, like in a personal appearance, like a parade or something like that, do you ever have to speak when you're doing that? Do they have you do the voice?
No. There are basically 3 different versions of Vader that I would play when I was playing Vader. If it was in universe, you had to play it straight. You had to play it just like the movies. So for Special Edition or Rebel Assault 2 or commercials that took place in the Star Wars universe, you had to play it just like the movies. If it was out of universe, if it was something in our world or something like that, then you could kind of goof around with it. I did a commercial for Walmart one time, and it was promoting the release of the original trilogy on DVD. and there's a couple talking about how having the Star Wars trilogy DVD is just like having the characters live with you, and they have Chewbacca and Vader living in their house with them. And at the end of the commercial, there's a moment where the husband and wife are sitting on a couch, and Vader's sitting between them, and the husband is like trying to use the Force to get the remote to come to him, and Vader just goes, picks up the remote and just hands it to the guy. So you can have fun with it there. The third version of Vader would be more like a theme park character. So when you're doing live appearances, I wouldn't speak as Vader, but they would have the breathing sound playing from the chest box, and you're pantomiming a lot of things. That's a tricky one because you want to keep it as true to character as you possibly can, but you're still interacting with people. And invariably, someone would shove a baby in my face. Like, yeah, take a picture with my baby. And it's like, dear God, do you know what you're doing to this child? You're shoving a child right into a Sith Lord's face, and I can't change the expression. I can't like smile or anything like that. So you have to completely change the body language and go from, something like this to hello. Of course, you don't go hello, but something like that. It's tricky.
Understood. So I do have an example of some of your work here, if I can bring it on stage and show.
Sure.
This, we'll go through it.
Yes.
The Star Wars trilogy is back on the big screen, and each planet is celebrating in a different way.
There we go.
On Earth, people are playing Feel the Force at Taco Bell. Press the game piece to magically reveal if you've instantly won cash, one of millions of prizes, or a special edition Hummer. See the trilogy, Feel the Force. Play the game at Taco Bell.
Are you sure this is the right theater? I'm not even sure it's the right planet.
The 90s doesn't feel that far away until I see something like that.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
There's a good story behind that commercial. It was a 3-day shoot. This shows you how much in Hollywood, even just in commercial shoots, there's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. So we shot that at this huge studio in Santa Monica, California. It used to be an airplane hangar. That's how huge it was. And we had tons of extras, as you saw there in that. And you've got, obviously the characters on stage. So they said to me when we went to do this commercial, this was one that was going to play. We shot it in December of 96 and it played during the Super Bowl in 97. So we get to set. My call time was on the first day was 7 a.m. And I get there and they said, okay, start getting suited up because we're going to get to you right away. We're going to get to you right away. Okay. All right. So I start getting suited up. And they keep saying, okay, yeah, we're going to get you in just a moment. We're going to get you in just a moment. Okay, fine. So I'm hearing this for hours. And then finally I hear, okay, that's lunch. All right, fine. So I'm like half in and out, half out of the costume there. And they said, okay, but as soon as lunch is over, be ready because we're going to get right to you. They never got to me the whole first day. Next day, 7 a.m. call time again. They said, okay, you got to be ready right away because we're going to get right to you first off. Same thing happened. We get up to lunchtime. They call lunch. Finally, they said, okay, we're going to get to you right after lunch. They didn't get to me until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. And finally, we shoot all this. And they had in that sequence, what you don't see is they had 6 stormtroopers and Darth Vader, and they wanted us to walk down a staircase, which is difficult enough because visibility in those costumes is crazy. It's for Vader, basically you can see what's directly in front of you through the lenses of the mask, or if you tilt your eyes down, you can kind of see your feet through the chin. Everything else is a blind spot, and the troopers aren't much better. So they wanted us to walk down a staircase. There is a trick for that. You kick your heel to the back of the step, and that's how you kind of feel your way down the steps there. So they wanted us to go down the staircase, but then they had dry ice coming down from above, and they had a steam tray coming up with steam coming up from there. So as soon as we hit the steam tray and the dry ice, the lenses of our masks were completely fogged over. We couldn't see a darn thing. So poor Lorn, he asked the question. Now he's disappeared. It's been captured. So I'll just continue on.
Well, I guess he's still here because we're both still here.
Oh yeah, actually he's still here, but so he's listening to. He's probably had the same thing happen to him that happened to me earlier.
Yeah, he's just trying to fix his camera. He'll be right back.
So we hit this steam train. Couldn't see anything, so we figured out, okay, we're gonna have to shoot it in sequence in segments here. So we had to take like a step and a half, then stop, take the masks off of all of us, wipe out the inside of the mask so we can see, put it back on, change the camera angle, do it again, another step and a half, stop the camera, change the setup again, wipe the masks off, start over. So we did it in 3 different segments to finally get us all walking down the staircase. And then, of course, you look at the commercial, and the final thing, all you get is that one shot of me going, and that's it. But this is why actors like to do commercials. I didn't realize that at that time. That was the project that actually made me SAG-AFTRA eligible. So I was able to join the union at that moment. Halfway through that shoot, I had a must-join status. Well, I didn't know I was going to get paid residuals for that at first. I thought I was just going to get an appearance fee for that. And it was interesting. So a check arrives, a nice sizable check, because the commercial started playing. And again, it played during the Super Bowl, and it just kept on playing. And I thought, oh, wow. I wonder if any of my colleagues on this commercial got paid this much. And so the checks kept coming. And finally, I ran into somebody in the hallway who had played one of the other characters in it, because they used somebody from LucasArts. And I said, so did you get anything interesting in the mail? And he goes, you got one too? And I said, yeah. So, but that commercial just played and played. So it was a very interesting shoot. That was also where I learned that it's always important to know the director's name on a project. There was a very scary German director shooting this thing, and we're in the middle of
tour.
Huh?
An auteur of a Taco Bell commercial?
Yes, sort of. And so we're kind of talking in between as camera setups, and we're kind of joking around. And he goes, "Excuse me, what is your name?" I said, "Andrew." And he goes, now tell me, what is my name? And I didn't know his name. And I thought, okay, I've just gone from star to being peon in this thing. and I think I even let out a little eek kind of thing. And he goes, always learn the director's name. And from that point on, I have learned the name of everybody on the set. Everybody. So, which is what cool. You should do anyway,
So in addition to the commercial work that you've done, and actually, I guess I hope this doesn't take my camera out again, where there's
okay.
One more that I want to share here. Because I think that's probably what actually killed the camera.
Is it the M&M's commercial?
No, it's actually, here we go.
All right.
You know this scene.
Oh, yes.
Alert my Star Destroyer to prepare for my arrival.
Yes.
Short little scene, but that must have been awesome.
That was amazing. So the special edition came about 2 years after I had been playing Vader. So I'd been playing Vader for about 2 years for commercials and television appearances and print and that sort of thing, and live appearances. And then the special edition came about. We shot it in the summer of 96, and then it was released in 97, early 97. And found out that, they were going to add additional footage of Vader to the films. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is great. And they said they want you. I said, great, fantastic. So now I'm going to get to be not just, some other Vader. I get to be canon at this point. I get to be part of my favorite, films. And I almost didn't get to do it because the shoot was a whirlwind shoot. I think it was like about a week and a half. They shot everything for all 3 films, all on the sound stages at ILM and on the blue screen stages and everything. And I almost didn't get to do it because the day that I was scheduled to start shooting was the day that our first child was due to be born.
Oh,
and so they kept calling me up. Don Bees, I'm going to keep mentioning his name. He was my original Vader wrangler, and but he was overseeing all of the stuff for the shoot because they were pulling so much stuff out of the archives. So it made sense for him to oversee this, and he worked at ILM. So so he keeps calling me up. He goes, "So, baby born yet?" I said, "No, not yet." So they're holding it open for me as long as they can. Thankfully, my daughter was born 2 weeks early, so I got to do it. But it was a very interesting shoot. It was great to watch all the other stuff that was being shot, the stuff from Jabba's palace and the Wampa ice creature, seeing Howie Weed playing that. Now he's animator from ILM, and seeing the miniature cave that they made that had him stand in so that he looked huge. It was fantastic to looking at this stuff. And that shot that you just showed, that's probably the easiest spot to find me in the special edition. The stuff we shot was, for all over the place, shot and peppered throughout all of it. But that's the easiest spot to find me. And that long shot where we're walking across that beautiful matte painting by Ralph McQuarrie. So the way it was shot on the blue screen stage at ILM, and it was a big, tall platform, about maybe 8 feet off the ground. And it ran the whole length of the soundstage. It was just a very long ramp, so that they could get this, this nice long shot. But it was not a very wide ramp. It was platform. It was really not that wide, not much wider than the average desk, you might say. So we had to rehearse it many times with, as we say, buckets off, with the helmets off. And so it's Vader, it's 2 Imperial officers and 2 stormtroopers. And so we had to rehearse it with the masks off so that we could kind of get a feel of where we're going, because you can't see in those masks. You can't look down, and Vader takes very long strides and he keeps his head up. So I can't tilt like this to try to see where I'm going. I got to walk straight. And so we had to sort of form muscle memory on this sort of thing to make sure that we don't go too far left, too far right, and how many steps can we take before we get to the end of this whole big platform. So then we, after we rehearsed it, we started shooting that scene, and we get to the last take. They go, "Cut! Don't move." And I was about that far from the end of the platform.
Whoa!
One more step, and I would have hit the deck. So I don't know if they were worried about me or the very expensive original costume. I would like to think it was me. So,
a little bit of both, at least.
I would hope so.
I would like to call out Mike's comment.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the walk
Thank you
down
so much,
perfectly.
Mike. Yeah.
And I agree. It's indistinguishable from prowess in that scene.
I worked very hard on that. First, I think the one that I really worked on it originally was for Rebel Assault 2, because we had about a half hour of full motion video on that. And I remember sitting with Hal Barwood, who was one of George Lucas's old USC film school buddies, who was one of the co-writers and producers of Dragon Slayer, and he also helped create Corvette Summer with Mark Hamill. But he was a game designer at LucasArts, but he was shooting the live action footage. He was directing the live action footage for Rebel Assault 2. And as he watched the finished shots of some of the scenes and me turning in the swish of the cape and things like that, he was giddy. He was just laughing. He's like, "Oh my gosh, that's Vader. I got to show this to George." So
It's absolutely fantastic. And that the Rebel Assault 2 footage, including the intro, I wanted to show that. I really wanted to show the whole thing here because I thought it was a really creative introduction, because it starts off with an MSE droid going through a section of a Star Destroyer. It was very clever before it opens the doors and the Imperial officer is approaching you. But it had John Williams music all through the back of it, and I knew that we couldn't play it.
We want to keep you on the air.
if you want to see some fantastic work as Vader, go look up the original Rebel Assault 2 cinematics. They are incredible. And somebody has gone out there and upscaled them so they're in better quality than they were.
Actually, that was officially released, I believe, the upscaled version of it.
Oh, cool. I didn't know that was official, so that's awesome. I do have some super chats that we want to get through here real quick.
Excellent.
We've got Old Man Hatfield for 20 saying, really loving this interview. Thanks to everyone involved. I am laughing at history, which is fantastic.
Old Man Hatfield, and he would have gotten away with it too if it hadn't been for that dog and those pesky kids. So,
and he's got another one here for 10 saying it's refreshing to see a man who was hired for his talent.
Yes, hired for my talent, but apparently I've frozen here. So.
Yeah, looks like again. We've got Sean, formerly artist John, for $4.99.
Okay. Let's see if I can fix this. Hold on.
Sure. Uh-oh. I hope that's fixing. He's back in the situation that I was in right now. I can see that he's still backstage. We can still hear you, Andrew. Yep, coming back. There you are.
Okay.
There it is. All
Perfect.
We have a question.
Andrew, did you ever do special effects work on characters like a method sound effects artist playing Darth Vader all day to enhance and add depth to Darth Vader?
Interesting. No, not like that. No, I have actually myself. I've never done an effects shot with Darth Vader in it. I've never done any effects with Darth Vader. So I've done effects with other characters, but never Darth Vader. So.
We've got one dirty bird for 2 saying, Kevin said, I have a bad feeling about this.
Yes.
The Batmobile coming down on you.
Minox chewing on the cables. That's what it is.
We've got Old Man Hatfield again for another 10 saying, I might be jumping the gun, but if you had the technology that we have now, do you think the outcome would have been as cinematic?
No, I don't. That's a good question. I don't think it would be. When we were working on Phantom Menace, we pulled a rabbit out of the hat for George on that one, doing the effects for it. It was shot in a very interesting way, and sometimes I don't want to say sloppy, but there were things where it's like we had to do stuff that was just crazy. Like there were characters in blue costumes running across a blue screen stage, and trying to preserve that and keep that going, and so many things. In fact, it was even budgeted into the prequels. George had time to change his mind and change scenes around and reshoot stuff and do things. And we were doing stuff that really hadn't been done before for the Star Wars films. And I said, look, we pulled the rabbit out of the hat for George on this one. That means on the next one or some other filmmaker's project, people are going to think that we're just miracle workers, and it happens. But as so you get people thinking, well, they can, it used to be an old joke in Hollywood. You say that if something didn't go right on set, you'd say, well, we'll fix it in post. You'd find some way to kind of fudge it. You find some way to make it work. It's not a joke anymore. You can literally fix anything. If you've got the time and you've got the budget and the resources, you can fix anything. Somebody challenged me on that once and said, well, you can't fix an acting performance. Yes, you can. I've done it. On Phantom Menace, Jake Lloyd, loved Jake Lloyd, but he had this habit of rolling his eyes in shots. He'd roll his eyes. And George said, make that stop. So he had to paint out his eye rolls. Natalie Portman had a habit of blinking. And if you're playing Queen Amidala and you're blinking like this and you're the leader of this planet, do I look like I'm confident? No, I look nervous. So I'm exaggerating there, but we painted out the eye blinks. If one actor had their best take on take number 4 and somebody else had in that same scene had their best take in take number 7, mix and match, composite it together, make it work. So you can fix literally anything. And when filmmakers started realizing that, then they felt liberated, but at the same time, I think limitation is very important. I used to, when I left Industrial Light and Magic after Attack of the Clones, I was offered a full-time faculty position at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco, and I ran the visual effects department there for about 2.5 years. And I told my students, I said, limitation inspires imagination and innovation. What can you do with what you have? And I think it's really important. And I can even tie that back. I learned that from Walt Disney. You look at something like Disneyland, the original layout, the original footprint of Disneyland. all had to fit into this certain area, this certain footprint. And it was very creative. It made the Imagineers become extremely inventive to try to get everything in there. So they were using techniques like forced perspective and things like that to get everything to work. You've got roof lines that has one facade facing towards Main Street and another facade facing towards Adventureland. Things like that. These little, tips and tricks and tools that they were coming up with. These little cheats, and that's, I think, very important. And if you've got this attitude of, well, software can fix anything, or like we were talking about scrapbooking earlier, it's like, well, we can just shoot it a whole bunch of different ways and see which one works. You then start to lose that cinematic quality because you're not taking risks anymore. Yeah. You're taking advantage.
I think that's a lot of why A New Hope worked, is that the constraints on it were so incredibly tight.
Yes.
And ironically, that's part of why George was so disappointed in the final product. I think that's part of why he wanted to do the special edition so much, is it didn't match the vision in his head. And yet I've often felt that George would probably argue with most of the audience. I think that the audience and George have a fundamental difference of opinion about what makes Star Wars great. And I have a feeling if he sat down with most of the audience, he would say, "You're not getting it."
And you also have to figure out that somebody like George, that his opinion about Star Wars is going to change over time too, because when he started off on the first films, he was married, then he was divorced, then later he became while he was married, then he became a father, then he was divorced, then he adopted 2 more children, and so on his own, and so he's a different person by the time he gets to the prequels. He's more of a dad. And so that's why I think you see the special edition softened certain things, like the whole, Han Greedo thing, which I'm not going to get started on because I have a big, strong opinion about that. Han shot first. Anyway, but, so you change over time like that. So, yeah, a lot of people are going to be. But here's the thing about Star Wars, and I always say this to be very diplomatic about it, is that there's enough Star Wars for everybody. You don't like this? Watch that instead. Read this, instead. There's something for everybody. So
I'm not going to make you do this next one, but I am going to bring it up because he said it.
Okay.
Now I need to hear your Luke impression, Andrew. Now,
all right.
I'm not going to make you do it.
I'll give it a try.
If you're going to, can I suggest the line?
I was going to do the line from B-Wing, X-Wing thing.
Okay, but if you're going to do it, then I've got a request for you. I'll throw in one that I want as well. Do the B-Wing line, and then I'll toss you mine.
Okay, so let's see if I can remember it here. Again, no warm-up. Lieutenant Farlander, are the B-Wings combat ready? Good work, Lieutenant.
Very good. Very good.
That was no practice, folks. Okay. All right, what's the line you wanted to hear?
A certain shopping trip that Luke wanted to take to really go visit his friend.
No, I'm not going to do that one. I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm not going to do whiny Luke.
I do have a serious question about the editing.
Okay.
So, did the Ewoks get Portman's blinks then?
Did the Ewoks what?
Get Natalie Portman's constant blinking.
I hate the fact that they
to them. That was.
I hate the fact that they put those blinks in the latest version.
What was that, Lorn?
I said I hated that they put the blinking in on the latest edition of the special edition. It's creepy. It's really weird.
It's funny though. Some people thought the big non-blinking glassy-eyed stare was weird, but when you put in the blinks, it's like then it's weird because I think it's just because we're used to it. We're used to it one way, and it's like I was watching. I'm a big fan of Hogan's Heroes. Love Hogan's Heroes. Love that series, and I'm used to it with the laugh track, which has had since I was a kid. When the show first came on, and they've been broadcasting it now without the laugh track. It's weird without the laugh track. So maybe it's one of those situations where it's like we're so used to the Ewoks not being able to blink, and suddenly now they're blinking. But those eye blinks from Natalie had to go somewhere, right?
Somewhere.
We've got one from Spring 91 Bear for 5 saying, I remember a lightsaber ad in 1997 to 98 where a kid battled Darth Vader. By the way, my name is Andrew too. Was that you?
That was me, Andrew. Yes, it was. That was actually the very first commercial I ever did as Vader. So the kid had the toy lightsaber, and I had the real lightsaber. And the toy lightsaber wasn't reading on camera, so it wasn't lighting up well enough. So they had rigged it up with a halogen lamp. This is before we had all the LED lights and things like that. So they rigged it up with it's one of those telescoping, collapsible lightsabers. And so they had a halogen lamp in the base of it there, and the cord running down the kid's sleeve and down through his jacket. He's dressed as Luke, like Luke from Empire Strikes Back, that sort of gray outfit, and then running down to the floor. If I remember correctly, it was that outfit, or it might have been the Return of the Jedi outfit. So he had the cord going down there. So we turned that on to do the take, and then I had to quickly turn it off, otherwise it would just melt the whole thing. That halogen lamp. So we go to do the first take, and Vader and Luke, the kid playing Luke, has to, we're supposed to, clash sabers. Well, I've got the real saber with that plastic rod I was talking about earlier. It's sticking out of it. And so when his hit mine, it just wrapped around it like that because it was so soft at that point. It was like, okay, cut. So we had to do that whole scene without ever actually touching sabers. So, but it's a fun little commercial. Yeah. I did a lot of stuff for Kenner Toys. The interesting thing is a lot of people don't catch on is all those old Kenner Toys ads from that time period. They're all the narrator for all of those commercials is Mark Hamill, but he's not using his Luke voice. He's using his Mark Hamill narrating voice. So
I didn't know that. That's cool. Sean for $1.99 saying, ask about the Doctor Who umbrella, Lorn.
So I am a big Whovian. I am an absolutely huge Whovian fan. I've been a fan since since Tom Baker days, but then I went back and watched the first three gentlemen, and but I was always fond of Sylvester McCoy's portrayal and his outfit, and so not only do I have the umbrella, I've got the question mark vest, and the coat, and I've got. Anyway, I don't look anything like Sylvester McCoy, but yeah, I've got the whole cosplay. I got the shoes, the whole bit. The only thing I don't have is the pants, because he had the very specific checked pants and the plaid pants, and I don't have that yet. So,
Old Man Hatfield for 10 saying, I fully agree. Talent outshines technology, young man.
It is true. It really does. It's and I think people. I think maybe hopefully Hollywood's getting that message again, that it's talent, it's story, it's characters, that it doesn't matter. It's even with AI right now too. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's great, like Pro was saying, that it's great that people can like take this technology and start making stories that fit our head canon, that rather than what the studios want to feed us on our favorite franchises and things like that. But at the same time, it's not necessarily a medium, it's a tool.
Yeah.
When you go back to when CGI effects became really big in movies, everybody thought, oh, CGI is the rage, practical effects are dead. But that's not the case. It's the best tool for the job. And we've gotten to that point where I talk to my friends who work in practical effects, and I said, we're busier than we've ever been. It's all about what fits the thing. It's like, yeah, you can take a wrench and drive a nail with it. Doesn't mean it's the best tool for the job. So,
yep, agree. SFX Sabertooth Raptor for 5 saying, my favorite LucasArts games of the 90s to early 2000s are Rebel Assault 2, Dark Forces 2 and 3, Rogue Squadrons 1, 2, and 3. Did you do work on The Force Unleashed?
I did not work on Force Unleashed because that came right after I left and went to ILM, but I did work on the others. Actually, I have a question for them. So did you, since you love Rogue Squadron, did you ever find the Easter egg in it? If you know the right code, you can fly a Cadillac convertible in that game. It's one of the little Easter eggs. We put Easter eggs in all the LucasArts games. And I think it's in Dark Forces. You've got the Imperial Smoking Lounge, if you know where to find it. You turn a corner, and all of a sudden there's all these Imperial officers standing around smoking. And yeah, there's one of our games was Sam and Max Hit the Road, but I think it's either Dark Forces or Jedi Knight. If you zoom out on the map, you can see that the whole level is actually the shape of Max the Rabbit's head. So lots of things like that. The original Rebel Assault had you could watch all the cutscenes in Mystery Science Theater mode with the silhouettes of Vader and 3PO and R2, and they're cracking jokes in the theater. So
one of my favorites is Indiana Jones and the Infernal Machine, where you end up in the Barbary Coast barber shop.
Yes. That was actually the last game that I worked on at LucasArts before I went to ILM.
That's a personal favorite of mine.
I was doing tiling cycling animations that were 16 pixels by 16 pixels. It was driving me crazy. I was doing water textures and lava textures because it's got to tile on all sides. So it's a continuous image, and then the animation has to cycle over, and you have to do it in such a way that it doesn't look completely repetitive. Nearly killed me.
We've got I'm going to butcher the pronunciation here. Madden 1790, I hope, for 5. Was that why so many great directors came from adult films? I have no idea.
Don't know. I don't know anything about that.
And then we've got Burry the Music Man for 2 saying, your best show ever. Thanks, Andrew, for sharing.
Oh my gosh. Thank you.
And
I'm just a Sith Lord, like any other Sith Lord, just hanging out with these guys. So.
The last subject that I wanted to touch on tonight is what you're doing now, which is Adventurous Ideas, which I am thrilled to hear about because you are working with voice actors and storytellers to bring back essentially the radio drama format. You're doing full cast, or in some cases, in the case of Only One Productions, single actors doing all of the roles in audio dramas. And I think that this is really cool. I actually did want to show the website so that people know where to go to get it. Give me just a second while I bring that up.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
so for people, it is Adventurous, so it's like adventure with the E removed and the OUS at the end. Adventurous Ideas. And this came about because my buddy Jerry Cornell and I, it actually came about because of the COVID lockdown. We were all these creative types stuck at home with nothing to do because there was no production, no post-production, no conventions, nothing. And Jerry said, "Hey, we should come up with a project." And there's Jerry right there. We should come up with a project, and he thought about doing like a radio play, an audio drama, and he came up with an idea for a story, and we gave it to a writer that we knew, and as she was turning in the scripts to us, we started reading, and we thought, wow, this is actually really good. So then we sent the scripts out to different actors that we knew, some of them well known, some of them not. And everybody was recording from home under different conditions. And as we got the tracks in and we started editing it together and mixing in the sound, we thought, wow, this is actually turning out really nice. And then things opened up, and we did a convention in the San Francisco Bay Area, a little convention called MouseCon, which is a very Disney-centric convention. And a lot of our performers that were in the productions had ties to Disney or Pixar or Star Wars. And we had a panel at the convention, and the response was so tremendous. We looked at each other and thought, I guess we have to do this for real. So we formed the company. So we produce audio dramas, very immersive audio dramas. We like to think of it as like cinema for your ears. Because they're very cinematic. So it's not like an audio book where you have a narrator reading to you. These are full dramatizations, and we have casts of actors that have been involved with Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, Pixar, Super Mario, Doctor Who, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Pinky and the Brain, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, every franchise you can think of. And all of our stories are original IP. We have wonderful writers that are working with us. A lot of the stories originate with either myself or Jerry. Jerry comes up with a lot of them. And we drive our wives crazy because it's like, you go to bed at night and hits the pillow, and it's like your brain goes, wait, I got an idea, I got a story idea, and it's like, oh, okay, and you're tossing and turning, and then our wives will say, okay, get up, go write it down, let me sleep. So we have 2 projects that have been released this year. One of them is called Dark Park. There we go, Dark Arcade, which is an anthology series about strange happenings in mysterious old theme parks. And Dark Arcade in particular is about 3 mischievous teenagers that go to their local amusement park to check out the new virtual reality game called Zombie Apocalypse. And they get there and they find out it's a little less virtual and more reality than they had bargained for. We got for fans of anime, Michael Yurchek is in the cast of that. He's the voice of Tobi and Obito in Naruto. And then the other one that came out so far this year is Dark Park, is Only One, Getaway. And as you mentioned, Only One, the premise of Only One, it's also an anthology series, different story each time, different characters, but the connecting tissue is that in each episode, every character must be convincingly portrayed by only one actor, and they have to agree to do it without ever reading the script. So we tell them what the premise of the story is, but then we say, okay, are you in? Are you game for this? And this particular episode, Getaway, stars Jim Meskimen, who is a wonderful actor. He's been on Landman, Parks and Recreation. He had a recurring role years ago on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. He's a wonderful actor and voiceover artist and comedian, and he's a world-class impressionist. He's an amazing impressionist. He's actually also the son of Marion Ross, Mrs. Cunningham from Happy Days. So, but Jim was a perfect choice for this. And the amazing thing is, okay, well, the story for Getaway is it's about a guy who is trying to make ends meet. He's got a little side hustle from his regular job. He's works in a call center at night, but during the day he has a side hustle where he drives for one of these driving apps, these ride sharing apps like Uber or Lyft, and the app is called Getaway, and he thinks it's like Getaway for the weekend. No, it's called Getaway because you're the getaway driver for the criminals. And so he gets mixed up into this whole thing, and it's a big thing about mistaken identity. And Jim plays 16 characters in this thing, and I swear you can't tell they're all him. In fact, even as we were going through the whole editing process on this, we would forget that it was all Jim. And it's like we would start, instead of saying, well, when Jim says this or when Jim says that, we start calling it out by the character names, and we're forgetting, oh my gosh, it's all Jim. So that's the first of that. We have a project that's coming out later this year in August called Heroes of Extinction. It's a 7-part superhero story. And it's a story of a guy named Gabriel Cohen, a superhero named True Strike. He's been a superhero since he was a teenager. It's basically the only job he's ever known. He gets his powers from this alien collective that gives him his super strength, his super speed, and his ability to teleport. They also act like an intergalactic Siri or Alexa in his head. So when he has information when he's out in the battlefield. But now Gabriel's turning 50 and his body's changing. It's not connecting with the alien technology like it used to, and his powers aren't what they once were. And the collective has informed him that he must now find and train his successor, someone who was young and pure of heart like he was. Well, someone, or maybe a group of someones, we don't quite know yet, are systematically taking out all the superheroes and the supervillains and has to find out who's behind all of this. There's also been this plague of these mutant creatures unleashed upon the city, these half-human, half-animal poisonous things that are killing people, and his powers aren't reliable enough to stop them. And the love of his life, a scientist who may have been involved with the creation of these mutants, she's been killed by one of them. So now he has to mourn her death. He has to band together with the remaining heroes and villains to stop these creatures. He has to find out who's behind everything, and he still has to locate and train his successor. So we've got a great cast of actors in that one. Actually, the first episode is on our YouTube channel, Adventures Ideas on YouTube. You can listen to it for free. And like I said, the whole thing will be out in August, the final thing. And then we've got, let's see, so we've got 2 in release this year, new ones in release. We've got 3 in post-production. We've got, 9 in pre-production. So it's going through the casting phase and that sort of thing. We've got 19 being written and another 75 plus stories in development, all audio. So
And I can tell you guys, I listened to both of these. I have copies of both of these dramas. They're excellent. I especially loved Getaway. I love the concept of this, that Jim had to agree to it without really knowing
Yeah.
what he was going to be reading. He knocks it out of the park. Dark Park, by the way, I love the idea that this is going to be an anthology series. It reminds me a little bit of the framing device of Something Wicked This Way Comes. I
Yeah.
love the idea that you've got potentially all kinds of different venues of this park that you could explore.
Oh yes.
And
And
the
it's
fact
different
that you're
parts
getting
each time too. So
the fact that you're getting into superhero stuff really makes me hope you get into some old timey pulp stuff too, like The Shadow
oh
or
yes.
something like an Indiana Jones. I'm
We've got every genre you can think of we're working on. We have a 1930s murder mystery. We have a pirate tale that's unlike anything else out there. So we're trying to make sure that we're not just falling into the same old tropes of things. Our stories, however fantastical the stories are, they're always about the characters. They're always story driven and character driven, and that's what we love. And the great thing about audio is that one, it's portable. You can take it with you. You know, you can listen to it in the car while you're driving. You can listen to it while you're doing your chores or your homework or something. You don't have to plop yourself down in front of a screen for 2 hours to watch a movie or who knows how long to binge watch a series. And it makes the audience a participant in the process. They're part of the crew because they're the cinematographer. They are the
It's
art
pure-
director. They become, all of they create all the visuals in their head.
pure theater of the mind.
Yes.
It's an old school thing that I'm pleased to see is kind of coming back. So I encourage everybody to go check out the website. It is adventurousIdeas.com. I really liked what I heard here. I think you guys will too.
Thank you.
Andrew, is there anything else that you wanted to get off your chest before we close it out for the night?
I just want to say thank you guys. This was so much fun. Yeah. I could do this every week. This is so much fun. You really made it a lot of fun.
I just bookmarked the site.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
We've had a blast having you on too. This has been a whole heck of a lot of fun. I'm really glad that you reached out and that we were able to get you on here. We do have a couple more to get to before we close out. Matt Anun 1790 said, "You got my name correct. Make Pro give this to you." So I'm glad that I did. I was certain I butchered it.
Get the $5 tip then. Okay.
And then we've got Old Man Hatfield for 5 saying, "Thoroughly enjoyed the show. Hardly ever comment. Just saying." Glad you guys enjoyed it. Happy you all showed up here tonight. This was really special for me and for Kevin. I'm thrilled to bits that you were willing to come on. I hope actually you'll join us again sometime because
I would be glad to. You guys, yeah, I'm very fortunate and very blessed to be able to do what I do for a living. And I tell people all the time, I'm an ordinary guy who gets to do extraordinary things. And I don't take it for granted, which is why I like to, share my stories, share my knowledge. That's why I go to conventions and why I raise money for charities like the Starlight Children's Foundation and others. It's like, yeah, I've been so blessed. I like to try to give it back, so.
Speaking of which, convention appearances, do you have anything on the docket coming up?
Yes, actually. Let me quick look at my my calendar here because otherwise I won't know. Let's see here. So let's see. I have a couple. Let's see. I'm going to be at Contra Costa Con in the San Francisco Bay Area on April 19th. That's coming up. That's going to be a big Star Wars and Star Trek convention. And I'll also be at Lodi Comic Con in Central California on May 9th and 10th. And let's see. Got a couple coming up in July. I'm going to be at Stockton Con in July on July 11th and 12th. And I'll be at Conquest where is that? That is in Waterloo, Iowa. Let's see, that's July 18th and 19th. And then the big one that's coming up is Rebel Scum Con in the Dallas, Texas area. I believe it's in Frisco, Texas. That's a big 3-day convention, August 7, 8, and 9. If you're a Star Wars fan, that's the one to go to. So,
all right. good enough. I hope some of you guys will be able to get out to see Andrew there. He's going to be hopping all over the place, and we had a great time here, Andrew.
Great.
Thanks a bunch
If
for
you
being
can't
here.
find me at
Kevin?
a convention, you can always find me at candrewNelson.com, or you can find me. I'm C. Andrew Nelson on Facebook, C. Andrew Nelson on Instagram, C. Andrew Nelson everywhere.
You know, Lorn, I hope this reinvigorates your desire to want to do our audio play.
Aha! Okay.
Well, all right. Well, I
I'll
told
work
you.
on him, Kevin.
I haven't talked to you about it recently. I actually do have a story concept, so we'll see where we go with it. I'll talk to you about it offline at some point.
Okay.
Anyway, that is our show tonight, guys. Everybody, hope you had a great time. We'll be continuing our Cinema of the 90s, or I'm sorry, we're in the 80s now. Cinema of the 80s series starting on Friday. Our next year will be 1981. If you guys are fans of that year, be sure to tune in, make your list so you can compare against ours. Until then, take care. Everybody be safe. We'll see you on Friday.
The force is strong with you.
Good night.
The bell rings every morning. It's off to school and work. Waiting for some fun while my boss acts like a jerk. Pro show afternoons. Midnight sketch can't come too soon. The afternoon sketch can't come too soon. But at night I'm filled with dread. I know just what I'll do instead. Come on and follow me. It's time you see for Lorn and Apollo. Time to laugh and learn. Come feel the burn of what the fandom was. What random fun doesn't escape. Isn't it great? Late night with Lorn and Apollo.